Children's Hospital will make Kyiv's request for help front and center.
Helping Ukraine was already going to be the most urgent task at the summit, as NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg described it. He condemned Russia's attack on a children's hospital and pledged even more support to Kyiv.
Russia must understand that they're not able to wait those out. They need to sit down and accept a solution where Ukraine prevails as a sovereign, independent nation.
One of the decisions expected at the summit is to put NATO in charge of coordinating training of Ukrainian soldiers and delivery of weapons to Ukraine. This has been informally described as Trump-proofing Ukrainian assistance as the U.S. presidential election nears, and Donald Trump has pledged to cut off aid to Kyiv. For NPR News, I'm Terry Schultz in Brussels.
A heat wave that's already set dozens of new records across the West is expected to extend into the weekend. In Nevada, officials are urging residents to take precautions to stay cool as the temperatures have become deadly in other parts of the West. Paul Boger of Nevada Public Radio has more.
According to the National Weather Service, excessive heat warnings, watches, and heat advisories are currently in effect for nearly all of Washington State, Oregon, California, Idaho, Nevada, and southwestern Arizona. In Las Vegas, temperatures climbed to 120 degrees over the weekend, shattering the previously held record high of 118. To help those who can't escape the heat, officials in southern Nevada have opened cooling centers, but space is limited and travel to the centers can be difficult. In northern Nevada, temperatures are expected to stay well above 100 degrees through the weekend. Forecasters believe Reno will tie its record of 10 consecutive days over 100 degrees. For NPR News, I'm Paul Boger in Reno.
Cleanup is underway in Texas after barrels slammed into the Texas coast, flooding highways, closing oil ports, and causing flights to be canceled or delayed. Several deaths are blamed on the storm system. Harris County resident Sergio Sanchez says he was lucky.
There's people here, they probably have to rebuild their house from the bottom up, to us, just having a broken window and a little bit of the roof fly off, their house is gone.
Power is slowly starting to be restored, but still some 2.2 million customers are in the dark. Remnants of the storm are now heading east and are expected to drop heavy rain tomorrow. The National Weather Service has issued flood watches and warnings in several states. Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell is on Capitol Hill for 2 days of testimony. Today he's before the Senate Banking Committee, delivering his semi-annual monetary policy report. Investors will be looking for clues on what the Fed will do with interest rates as inflation cools. Wall Street's in mixed territory at this hour. The Dow is down 86 points, the Nasdaq up 53. You're listening to NPR News.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH Newsroom, I'm Henry Santoro. California Governor Gavin Newsom made a quick stop in Boston yesterday while on his way to New Hampshire to stump for President Biden. Newsom swung by the UMass Club, where he met with roughly 30 elected officials, Democratic National Committee members, and political strategists. He's a top surrogate in the Biden camp. The meet and greet was organized before the Biden-Trump debate, though through Newsom's Political Action Committee. And on this, the second straight day of oppressive heat and humidity in Massachusetts, more than 30 beaches across the state are closed, according to the state's Public Water Quality Dashboard. Health officials say in all, 31 beaches from Gardner in Western Mass to Boston and Quincy to beaches on the Cape. And of the beaches that are closed, 24 of them are attributed to an excess of bacteria in the water. The others are attributed to harmful cyanobacteria blooms as well as other reasons. On Martha's Vineyard, the YMCA there has the highest rate of community engagement of any Y in the United States, and now it's approved for a $30 million expansion. It'll include classroom space, an indoor basketball court, and track. The Vineyard Gazette has the story. The Y is in Oak Bluffs, opened in 2010. This year, its summer camp spots sold out in 3 hours. Construction on the Fieldhouse expansion is set for March. Red Sox open a series with the Oakland A's at steamy Fenway tonight, and we are at 86 hazy, hot, and Henry degrees in Boston right now. This is GBH News.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Nature Conservancy, working across oceans and isles to cut carbon emissions, protect lands and waters, and support local communities for a future where people and nature thrive. nature.org/solutions.
East and Rowdy. I am Marjorie Egan. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Libraries. We do every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we are streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. We'll be back here tomorrow with Attorney General Andrea Campbell. She'll be here from 11 to 12 for another edition of Ask the Attorney General, taking our questions. And yours, hello, Jim.
Did you notice how big the swag is the mayor brought today? This could be a very
Oh
good
my
day
God.
for us.
Celtics.
Speaking of the mayor, it is now time. It is now time for July's edition of Ask the Mayor with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She's with us till noon. You can ask her a question by calling or texting her at 877-301-8970 or visiting one of our colleagues, Ariana or Zoe, right over there, and tell them you want to ask a question of the mayor face-to-face, and very possible it might happen.
Yeah.
Hello, Mayor. How are you?
Hello,
Great.
Mayor Wu.
for
Now,
having
let's
me.
first things first here. What is in the swag over there with the Celtics on the back, on the outside
I
of the
don't know
cover?
how this is going to go, but you should just each
Thank
open
you.
it.
Okay.
We are still, of
Very-
course, riding high from the championship
Basketball!
parade.
Look at this, a green basketball. This is great.
Oh, my
We are-
God.
I love this.
These are leftover, not leftover. These were specially selected from yesterday's event, where the two newest Celtics who had been drafted and now signed, Baylor Shireman and Anton Watson, joined the organization at one of our summer camps at BCYF.
Oh, they
So
did.
they came
That's
to the
great.
Tobin. They did a clinic with the young people. They were ages pre-K to I think it must have been 5th or 6th grade, and so we had little ones and much bigger kids, and that was day one of summer camp. So I don't know how it gets better for them after that, but just shows how committed
Now,
this organization is.
By the way, I just want to clarify. When you said this was leftover stuff, I wanted to tell you we had another guest booked for this segment. She couldn't show up, so we figured we'd have you. Why not? You know, it's sort of.
Now, so
Especially
to the kids that are old enough to know, these are big stars. They just stand there with their jaws hanging open, or what's that like for the 11 and 12-year-olds that know these
Well, we
guys?
made it very clear that, this was one of the first things. I think they just signed their contracts officially yesterday, a couple days ago, 2 days ago at that point. And so one of their first real acts as a Celtic was to come and spend time with these young people
That's
at their
great.
summer camp.
That's great.
It's a great partnership that we have with the organization and the city.
So you just probably heard at the tail end of the news. Obviously you know this big heat wave going on here in Boston. Henry Santoro was talking about it. So what should people know in the city about their travails today if they are getting overheated?
Yeah, we have declared a heat advisory that will run through Friday at this point, although we'll monitor and see if it needs to be extended into the weekend. There's basically two categories of designations. A heat advisory is when it's 90 degrees of feels like temperature for 3 days in a row. Heat emergency is triggered by 95 degrees, and that's when the full resources of cooling centers and all of that kind of kick into effect. So advisory is really reminding people that the effects of heat are cumulative, and so just be very aware, drink lots of water, wear sunscreen, watch out, and be in touch with your neighbors and friends and others to make sure people have a plan of where they can stay cool indoors. And our misting tents and other resources will be out and about.
What's the pool deal?
Pool
Pool
deal?
situation with the city.
Pools are open. We actually have moved the sort of start of water season earlier and earlier each year, turning on the spray features and playgrounds now early in May, when it used to be well into June or later that they would get turned on just as a reflection of the heat. We have more pools online now this summer than we have in many, many years, and a couple that are running a little bit delayed with construction and repairs, but about to come online in the next couple weeks as well.
We talked to you before about swimming for kids. What's the deal with that?
It's life safety, health, family fun, all wrapped into one. And so it's been a really important priority of the cities to make sure that there are ways for every generation of the family to have free swim lessons. And so that's been taking place at a number of our pools, community centers, and in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club and other community organizations, where sometimes, we see the greatest disparity is actually if the parents' generation doesn't know how to swim,
yeah.
the likelihood that the children have had access to swimming lessons is there's a much bigger gap. And so we know that we want to address the whole family together.
Our number is 877-301-8970 if you want to text or call a question in to the mayor. Mayor, you spent some time with us when we were broadcasting live from New Hampshire during primary season. You were going door to door for President Biden, among other things you've done for the president's reelection campaign. After the last 10, 11 days, where are you in the candidacy of Joe Biden?
Yeah, I mean, elections are about choices, and for me, from the beginning in this race, the choice has been very clear, right? I am horrified by some of the record, the law breaking, the track record in office that we see on the Republican side, and so I'm gung-ho and all in making sure that that doesn't happen. I also have had the privilege of working very closely with the Biden administration over my 3 years in this office, and so we are in touch with the administration on a weekly basis. They have delivered millions of dollars for infrastructure funding, new electric school buses, funding to address homelessness in the city, and so the scale of partnership has been incredibly effective for Boston.
Well, just responding to the couple of things you said. One, very few Democrats, in fact, I don't know any, who think Trump is an acceptable choice, number one. And number two, virtually every Democrat, including those who think Biden shouldn't be the candidate anymore, praise the work he's done, just like you did for the first 3.5 years of his term. The question is, the governor is reported by the New York Times to say his political position is, quote, irretrievable after his debate performance. No, you know all these things. There's been no incumbent president since the history of polling who's had numbers in the 30s approval who's ever been reelected. Is he the right candidate? Do you support? Is he your first choice today to be the Democratic candidate to run against Donald Trump?
As long as Joe Biden is a Democratic nominee, I'm going to do everything that I can to make sure that he wins.
Do you want him to be the Democratic nominee?
I have had a lot of experience, outside of one debate night, outside of one sort of observation. He's been in Boston multiple times. He's worked very closely with our administration, and I can't share every detail of the many, many ways in which this administration has really delivered for Boston.
But one last thing, and I won't harp on this, and again, our number is 877-301-8970. When you were watching the debate a week ago, Thursday, for whatever it was, 102 minutes, did you say to yourself, this person can be the president until he's 86, 4.5 years from now?
I mean,
what was your reaction to that debate?
It was painful to watch. It was painful for multiple reasons on both sides, and I think that's been dissected quite clearly in the days since then. We have a process. Elections are governed by rules and procedures that are set ahead of time, and at this point in the process, the primaries are over. The delegates are pledged, and we have a window of time left before the convention, and that's when it's go time and on to the November election.
But can you see that man from that night on that debate stage serving for 4+ more years in the toughest job in the world?
I think looking at that one snapshot from the debate stage is, there's been a lot said about what that represented, and I think the larger question has been, is that typical of the sort of larger experience that people have had? I've had my own personal experiences. I try whenever possible to, even in just short conversations, to be at the tarmac when the president steps off Air Force One. And I've been in many, many rooms with him over even just the last couple of weeks when he's been in Boston. So I think it is up to the president, his campaign and team, and the American people for him to continue getting out there and to interact with people. And, where candidates aren't judged by any single instance. I mean, for the most part, it's a lot of observations that people make, and it's a lot of points of context that different people have. I have my personal context, and I think it's up to the president and his campaign to make sure that in these weeks ahead, everyone has as much context as they're able to provide.
So you want him to stay in the race?
If he's the nominee, I'm going to be backing him as solidly as I can.
Let's go to Aaron in Milton. You are on with the Mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Thank you for calling.
Hello, Aaron.
Oh, hello, Jim and Marjorie.
Hi, you're on with the Mayor.
I love your and I listen every day.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor Wu, I'm a Boston public school teacher and a proud BTU union member. And I first of all, I want to thank you for your very progressive policies throughout the city. I'm a huge fan of the bus lanes in Mattapan and all the rest. I think these are great, ambitious plans. So why is the BPS negotiation team so anti-progressive? Why are they offering us only 2% raises, and they're refusing to guarantee that our school buildings will even have locks?
So, first of all, Aaron, thank you for what you do. Among the most important jobs, if not the most important job, of making sure our young people have what they need to grow, and it's certainly not an easy job, and we've seen that especially over the last couple of years. So I think we were very. I was very proud of the way that the city and BTU came together for a contract when we first came into office. Now, this had been expired for some period, and so it covered a significant and very impactful period of time during the pandemic. Every contract negotiation is shaped by the financial constraints that the city is under. We're governed by Prop 2.5, which restricts our our main revenue source at 2.5% increase every year, and that
Plus
is
new construction.
Plus new construction, but that is a significant kind of tight belt around the city in terms of where we have the resources to do what we need to do, and so I think that's certainly a big factor here. We are hoping and eager to make sure that there's a contract settled once again that takes into account all of the full needs of our education system. And BTU has been incredibly sort of forthright that the needs that they're putting forward are not just about individual teacher salaries and working conditions, but about what our young people need, and in this case, whether it's safety or in the past around the staffing levels for social and emotional supports and other factors. So I know we're still in the midst of negotiations now and want to get those done as well and thoroughly and effectively as we can.
Aaron, thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
This is from Suzanne, who is right now in the Pike, but I guess she lives or works in Boston. I have a question, says Suzanne, about the scooters and mopeds and small motorized vehicles being used for Uber Eats and various delivery systems, as well as general modes of transportation. They are rampant and lawless in the city. What are your plans to curb their lawlessness? You must get a lot of complaints about this.
No, this is a significant safety issue, and we have seen a proliferation of this particular industry. Our approach is that it's really, the key figures to, quote unquote, go after or really to hold accountability are not so much the individual drivers who really are put under that kind of time pressure by the wage structures, the conditions of employment that the major food delivery companies put on them. It's really the companies that also have to bear responsibility for how their operations are run. And so the police department and our streets cabinet had already been in touch and issued a pretty strong communication to the three biggest food delivery companies saying, we are going to hold you to standards of lawful registration of these vehicles, safe driving, and there will begin to be consequences even on the company if that is not followed through. And we have seen more and more direct enforcement on our streets as well.
We're talking to Mayor Michelle Wu. She's with us until noon. The number to talk to her directly is 877-301-8097. Can I bring up a topic I'm sure you're sick of discussing with us and thinking about, is State House and home rule petitions. You are the mayor of Boston, is that correct?
That is correct.
And last that you won in a landslide, is that correct?
That feels like eons ago.
Okay, so you and the governor both supported a real estate transfer tax on very expensive dwelling sales to the money to go for affordable housing. The legislature apparently has rejected that, both the House and the Senate. You also, I don't know what the status is, but I assume it's before the legislature, the shifting of the burden of the property tax in the city away from residential payers to commercial payers. I don't know what else is pending up there. Do you have any indication before they go on their 5-month vacation that anything that you as the leader of Boston and the city council as the duly elected people want for the people of Boston is going to be approved by the people in Beacon Hill?
We are still working very closely, and in fact, just yesterday we had a briefing with the Boston delegation of state legislators about our residential tax relief proposal, and that was, I think that was very helpful. We had a lot of questions that we went through and really helped to explain that one, there's a lot of misinformation out there about this, about the perception that this is about taking what would be a huge increase for residents and instead making it a huge increase for commercial properties instead, and that is actually not the case. Residents and our residential property tax base and our commercial tax base are both really important to the city. Each depend on the other for their financial stability and strength as well, and so we would be getting the tools to maintain the current ratio of 60-40, how our taxes come in, 60 from commercial, 40 from residential. Two important points. If we are able to access this shift to avoid what could be a 33% increase on residential tax rates, right, which is just unaffordable and would be at a scale that would be devastating to our residents. If we're able to use the tool to avoid that by tweaking the ratio, the total amount of commercial taxes collected would still be less than it was the year before because we would use the tool if values go down. And so we're really talking about avoiding the shock on residents by having commercial properties have less of a decrease than they otherwise would. The other point that I think has been relevant is that the commercial tax rate today is way lower than it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago when this tool was last deployed successfully. And so we know that no sector wants to have an additional feeling that they're paying a greater tax rate than they would have been, even if it's still a decrease. And especially now, we need to do a lot to support the downtown businesses that are experiencing vacancies, and we are making a lot of efforts on that front. But this is about ensuring that we're in the right balance. I think that understanding was shared by our legislative delegation, and there will potentially be hearings scheduled in the weeks ahead, and so that one we are still very much working on.
But they're leaving in 3+ weeks. Do you have any indication from the leaders in the House or the Senate?
I've had lots of conversations. You know, it is ultimately up to them how they decide all the different pieces of how it fits together, but my understanding is that most likely there will be a hearing next week on this where we'll be able to get into it.
Doesn't this drive you nuts?
I mean, I have lots of things about my job that I would tweak if I had a magic wand.
A couple of things about this. Larry Edelman had a piece in the Globe talking about how when Tom Menino was the mayor, there was going to be a big increase on property taxes on homeowners in Boston too. And Tom Menino said, well, why don't you all call the legislature and tell them how ticked off you are about this? Now, Tom Finneran was then Speaker of the House, and he was also, of course, a Boston resident. And somehow, magically, I guess when he and his other Boston, and he's being the Speaker of the House, got all these phone calls, they did an about face, and they decided
Well, I'll tell you, there's actually a little more to the story there, because we are filing the exact same legislation that Mayor Menino filed 20 years ago. It's a very similar immediate situation, although we can have a conversation about the differences between the underlying economic conditions. But it worked well in 2004. It did exactly what it was supposed to do and was a temporary measure that ramped down and saved basically the possibility of that immediate shock. But what the city did then was they waited until they realized this was a real problem when tax bills were supposed to go out in January. And because the legislature had not been in session since that past summer and they couldn't do anything before, they sent out 2 tax bills to every property owner. One that had the gigantic number on it, one with this is what will happen if the legislature moves. And then once every property owner had those 2 tax bills, it became a lot clearer. We're actually trying to avoid that last minute unpredictability, the confusion, the fear, frankly, that it will inspire. And so we're trying to do it ahead of time. But it's missing a little bit of that same kind of threat and urgency factor.
Well, Aaron and Mikowitz, he's a Boston Democrat, and he's a big deal up there. He's the chair. We have to call it the powerful House Ways and Means Committee. But people calling the State House matters in these kind of
we had a briefing with all of that was available to all of the Boston state legislators yesterday. They were either directly there or had staff there, and so I think it was a really important session, and our legislators understand what's at stake here.
And one last thing, I don't want to belabor this, but people are very worried about their property taxes everywhere, and you're the mayor of Boston. Larry Edelman also talked to people from the Boston Municipal Research Bureau. They've been around forever, and they thought it might be a good idea to dip into this reserve, this $1.2 billion, but you don't think that's a good idea?
No, I mean, we have built up what we believe is a healthy, sufficient reserve that should be for clear emergencies that are unexpected. This is of a nature where we know what tool we need to manage this, and it's been tried in the past, it worked successfully, and we are looking to do that again. When you dip into reserves, in this case, we would be using almost our entire reserves for a one-time situation that frankly isn't an economic crisis of the scale that we need to save that for. It would be impactful and harmful for our bond rating to do so, and it's actually quite important that we protect those reserves.
Our number is 877-301-8970. If you'd like to speak to the mayor or text the mayor, that's the number. We've got Doug in Dorchester.
Wait, before Doug, I have one more related question.
What?
Do you take 5 months off from August to December like the legislature does? Are you not around
Nothing
for those
changes,
5
Jim.
months?
2004, the mayor
I'm
did
going
that,
to
right?
try to take 5 days in a row off at some point in August.
Sorry. Doug, I'm sorry. Doug in Dorchester, welcome. Doug.
No problem. Hi, Jim. Marjorie. Hi, Mayor Wu. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we
yes.
can, sort of.
Hey, can you?
That's better.
Yeah,
thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Great. So I have lived in a lot of cities across the country. I've lived in Boston for the past 7 years. I love it here. I've just had one frustration since I've moved here, which is how to properly dispose of my hazardous waste. It was bad since I've moved here, and it's only gotten worse. So, for example, week before last, in order to get rid of some old batteries and light bulbs, I had to drive from my house in East Dorchester over to West Roxbury. There's usually only one of the events once per month, and then I had to wait in line idling with hundreds of other cars to drop off those things. And I'm really starting to wonder if, from an environmental standpoint, if it makes more sense for me to just throw those things in the trash instead of all of the gasoline that I'm having to consume in order to properly dispose of them. So I don't know if this is something that's on your radar screen, or if you have any tips or tricks for me, or even to let me know what you do with your batteries and light bulbs, because given how busy you are, I can't imagine you're waiting in line for an hour to dispose of those things on the weekend.
Doug, can you remind me what neighborhood you live in again?
Dorchester?
Dorchester, okay. So I will do a little bit of digging with the team. I think what you are describing, I think, is generally right, that there are designated locations around the city at certain times for those kind of major drop-offs to happen, and I can completely understand that it would be inconvenient and hard to get to, and that we should think about maybe finding other ways or other partner organizations that can help us in key areas, provide another drop-off site or coordinate something. So I'm going to look into this. I'm not one that... I probably don't dispose of this properly, so you're making me feel very guilty.
Neither do I. I didn't know we had to
do better. I will do better, Doug.
You have to take your AAA batteries to a disposal site? I didn't even know that.
Do you want us to get his contact info? And
yeah, if we could find the location, that would be great.
Doug, please stay on hold, and we'll give your contact information to the mayor, and you'll hear from them. Thanks for the call.
I can't believe Maria from Salem was calling about this, because I used to harass Mayor Walsh about this subject, and I don't think I've ever asked you. So here we go. This is from Maria from Salem, though. It's not from me. She says, BPS exam schools generally have a high percentage of students who previously attended private schools. Would you consider requiring students applying to exam schools attend a BPS school, she says, for 2 years, as a prerequisite, unless, of course, they moved into the city recently, to diversify the BPS schools and stop the private school pipeline to the best schools in Boston exam schools? She's a BPS alum, actually, immigrant and teacher in an urban district. That drives me crazy, too. The people that go to the Dexter School or the Park School for 6 years, and they live in West Roxbury, and then because they've got these really expensive educations, they test right into Boston Latin. I know there's a tax issue; they're entitled to go there, but why can't that be part of the consideration?
So it actually is, in a way. There are all sorts of legal rules that have to be followed about how to treat people from various communities similarly, and not distinguishing between different groups in certain ways. But in fact, the current or the revised exam school policy that first went into place with new admissions criteria as of, I think it started in 2020 or 2021, and then fully ramped up because they couldn't do the testing component during the pandemic. But we're now in the second year of this admissions process, and there's a little bit of a challenging piece of it where 10 points are awarded to those who are applying from a school whose population represents 40% and above of students being at the poverty line.
Right.
And so
that's a zip code
a
thing.
little bit of, no, that's actually separate from the zip code thing. There's a zip code piece where there are 8 buckets, and those are the categories where students kind of by zip code are allocated a certain number of seats. And then there's an additional 10 points depending on the school that you are coming from, not your zip code. And so that is meant in a way to emphasize that the Boston Public Schools, which often are serving students of a greater population at the poverty line, end up having that direct little boost there. The challenge has been that not every Boston Public School is at the 40%. Some of them are falling right below it, and so it kind of fluctuates every year. And so we've been having some challenge with certain schools, even within the district, feeling like they've been punished. And so there were some tweaks in it this year, and it's a piece that we are looking at as now we have 2 full years of enrollment data, admissions data, to look at what the larger policy should be.
But just in a general kind of thing, it just always seemed unfair to me that if you had the money to go to a Dexter or a Park school, and then to be able to tuition right in, it just doesn't sit right. It seems to me that the exam schools in Boston should be for the kids who came from the Boston Public Schools.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's all different ways of looking at it, and the bottom line for me is that every child in our city should have every opportunity that they desire and that they want to grasp for. And you can't ever ask parents not to make what they believe is the best decision for their child at any given moment. We want, as long as the exam schools are seen as the only way to access a high quality high school experience in Boston, or to have the scale of resources that are available, we will always be falling short of serving every child. And so we have to do more to, yes, make sure that the exam school seats are allocated equitably and how, that best reflects the goals that our district and our city have. But also the larger issue is that we want every child, no matter where you went to, 6th grade or 3rd grade, no matter what zip code you are, even if you're moving from somewhere else, you should come to Boston and feel like you have every opportunity within the public schools.
Yeah, before we take a break, you mentioned you harassed Marty Walsh about that almost every month. Commonwealth Beacon, I'm sure you know this, is reporting that Marty Walsh and Lori Higgins, his girlfriend of at least, 25 years
Could
or
be 40
something,
years.
were married in the Caribbean. Did you know about this?
I didn't know about that. I only knew when we were asked for the marriage certificate as verification for it. But congratulations.
Well, congratulations to Marty Walsh and Lori Higgins. Both good
we
souls.
harassed him about that too. Remember, they got the house together, and we asked, well, okay, you're living together now. When is the wedding? And he would always evade the question. Okay.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. We're talking to the mayor of the city of Boston. She's going to stay with us to the top of the hour. The number to reach us at is 877-301-8970. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Some people really didn't want to put their kids on a bus to another neighborhood.
50 years later, what's the legacy of busing in Boston?
That's something we're really exploring right now.
Features editor Jennifer Moore.
We are looking into those ramifications, those remnants, if you will, both the seen and the unseen, that changed this city forever.
Boston Busing at 50. Find the stories at gbhnews.org/busing.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Massachusetts Educational Financing Authority, providing resources and tools to help you navigate the college planning process, including customized plans of savings, loans, and guidance. More information at mefa.org. And the MBTA Commuter Rail, providing public transportation service to over 170 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Just take the train. You can plan your trip at mbta.com/massbytrain. And Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, featuring a collection of over 700 artifacts. The exhibition is now open at the Castle at Park Plaza in Boston. Tickets and more at theauschwitzexhibition.com. And Eversource, committed to helping businesses reach sustainability goals and lower their energy use through energy assessments and custom recommendations. Learn more at eversource.com.
The world takes you outside U.S. borders and connects you with the most important events happening all across this big blue marble. We introduce you to memorable people whose stories will stick with you. I'm Carolyn Beeler, global news and inspiring voices that connect us with people around the globe. Join us weekdays on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She is Marjorie Egan. We are live at the library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're speaking with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu. She's here for a monthly Ask the Mayor. If you have a question for the mayor, the lines are full, but you can always text 877-301-8097 or call when a line opens up, or go see our colleagues and you can ask her a question right here at the Boston Public Library.
John from Westford, you're on with the mayor. Thank you for calling.
Hey, John.
Hi. I was just wondering, why are there no vocational schools in Boston? I mean, there are tons of great schools that you can test into, but if college isn't your thing, I feel like the community would be better served or served with having some sort of another route, a vocational school. I mean, I live out in the burbs now, and we have 3 vocational schools, and these kids are leaving high school, getting union jobs. I feel like that would be a great thing for the inner city.
Let's hear from the mayor. John, thank you.
Thanks, John. I completely agree with you. And the good news is that we actually do have a vocational school. At Madison Park Voc Tech High School is the gem of vocational education in Boston. We're actually in the midst of a process to fully renovate and reconstruct that school so that it has the most modern and updated facilities to provide the experiences that we know students want and that employers are looking for as well. And so there will be many different pathways into various career tracks that will potentially even get added as we do the renovations. And so we're in the middle of the planning process with the Friends of Madison Park group and the school community and many others. In addition to that school, there are specialty tracks at many of our other high schools. And so, for example, earlier in the year, we had announced that there will be a massive expansion of the partnership at the EMK Health Careers Academy, where now Mass General Brigham is leaning in and guaranteeing internships, interviews, job placements, and we'll have a specially designed curriculum to blend those two institutions. UMass Boston is thinking about how to really ensure that there's an educator's track at the BCLA McCormick High School that they have signed an MOU to really be more involved with. We also have a climate school, a Boston Green Academy. So there are many different ways that we're really trying to ensure there are pathways into great job opportunities.
John, thanks for the call. The number's 877-301-8970. Mayor Wu, a deputy superintendent of the Boston Police, Eddie Crispin, says he was demoted from the command staff last week after he refused to resign from the Peace Officer Standards and Training Commission. And that was the organization formed on the state level in criminal reform legislation after George Floyd was murdered, the theory being that it would improve standards, accountability, that sort of thing. The spokesperson for the police department says that what Crispin says is, quote, not accurate. What is accurate and what's inaccurate about what former Superintendent Crispin is saying?
So I think we're talking about two entities here that are kind of part of this conversation. There's the Post Commission, which is a state level agency that was set up thanks to the leadership of our state legislature around criminal justice reform and police reform. And then there's the Boston Police Department's command staff, which is the equivalent of a cabinet or senior leadership team that the police commissioner, Michael Cox, appoints. And these are roles that he chooses who is on that team. As I understand it, and again, I wasn't involved in individual conversations along the way, but my understanding from the commissioner is that the knowledge that Sergeant Detective Crispin would be on post did not happen until much later in the conversation after that nomination and appointment had been made, and the commissioner really believes that the best interest of the department and post to function well and to each do their job, post as an independent oversight agency regulating Boston and police departments around the Commonwealth, and the command staff as an internal policy-making and supervisory entity focused only on the city of Boston, that to keep those independent would be in the best interest of how he wants to choose and set up his command staff, with the focus just on Boston, with the sort of speaking with a unified voice, supporting the department and their internal management. And so essentially there's basically a policy that he's decided that command staff, post positions should be held by those who are not on the command staff in Boston, to keep those entities both fulfilling their respective missions fully. And given the choice between those two positions, the choice was made in this case to be on post, which is something that we celebrate as well, to have this leader who has been such an important voice around police reform in the department and in the city represented on there as well.
Do you support Commissioner Cox's decision? Do you think
Absolutely.
it's the right decision?
Yeah, I think so.
There's no representative on the post commission from Boston now, is there, or am I wrong?
No, that's not true. So a couple things.
Who is the representative?
One, I believe that for our leaders to do well in any organization, and what I've seen in the public sector and in city government, management matters, organizational health matters, and each of our departments should be led by someone who has the ability to put their own leadership team together. It's never just one person there. They have to be able to surround themselves with the people that they choose, and I fully back his judgment. And I think it's been working, right? We've now been lauded nationally for having unheard of low numbers when it comes to public safety statistics. Multiple years setting and breaking records for lowest levels of gun violence in the city, although we have much more work to do. We have a command staff that is nearly 2/3 people of color in the police department, never been at that level of diversity, 30% women, never reached that level previously. We have a police contract that was settled that, again, no other department around the country has ever settled a contract that actually took away the opportunity for officers who commit serious offenses to not have the avenue of going to arbitration and getting their job back. We've achieved great results, and the commissioner is doing an amazing job leading this department. He needs to have every ability to shape the team around him.
But I am wrong when I said Boston now doesn't have a representative.
So Sergeant Detective Crispin is serving on posts, representing.
He'll stay there.
Yes, exactly. That's what he chose.
And just be demoted within the department.
It was the decision was command staff for posts, and so there are actually 2 Boston affiliated officers on post. One is Sergeant Detective Crispin, who is in the Mambleo seat, where Mambleo recommends 5 names, and the Attorney General picks one of them. And then the union also has a different seat as well, so Larry Calderon is on there as too.
877-301-8970 is our number.
Anne in Rosendale, thank you for calling.
Hello, Anne.
Hello. Thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I live in Rosendale, and I have a question about a storefront that's been vacant for a number of years. The mayor may know about it. It used to be a Petco, and there's a for rent sign on this large property, and it really bothers a lot of us that it's not being rented. And the rumor is that the rent is too high, and it's somehow more profitable not to rent the building. I was wondering if the Mayor Wu, if you know anything about this, or could the city get involved?
I am not following this. I'm not familiar with the particulars of the rent in this case, but certainly know this storefront very well. I think everyone in our neighborhood watched the saga unfold of Petco coming to the neighborhood, even when there was already a beloved, locally owned pet store. And then it was of such commitment of the community to really support the local store that Petco then closed at some point and kind of left the storefront there. I don't know about the particular details of rent with this landlord, but the best entity, and I'll reach out to them afterwards, is the Rosendale Village Main Streets group, whose mission is to represent the small businesses in and around the square. They're an incredible organization, and I'm sure they would know much more and can give I'll get the update from them.
And thanks for the call.
Miro, I don't know if I want to eat outdoors today. Maybe by dinner time it would be less oppressively hot and humid. But in any case, I didn't realize this. The Globe just reported that the number of restaurants we had back in 2021, which is sort of, I guess, in the middle or tail end of the pandemic, was 400 with outdoor public spaces. Now it's down to 135. And that most of them are in the Back Bay. In Dorchester, there are only 6. Hyde Park, Mattapan, West Roxbury have no outdoor dining in public areas, excluding the North End. I know you've had a back and forth with the restaurant people up there, but how come? It seems like a nice idea when it's not quite as hot as this.
Yeah, I'm going to double check my numbers here. I think we are actually up to 215.
Oh, wow.
If I am correct, because some of them just apply as the weather gets nicer. And when the story came out, it was actually quite early in the season. Many of them take advantage of...
It was mid-June, yeah, you're
okay,
right.
Many of them take advantage of the summer more. So, yeah, more than 215 establishments are doing outdoor dining this summer, and you can find a full map of them on boston.gov. We did change the parameters of the program after the pandemic. During the pandemic, it was meant as a restaurant rescue and relief program where basically regulatory agencies everywhere looked the other way on accessibility requirements, on some of the provisions that we have determined are important for safety when you are dining so close to vehicles going by. And so many more of those were codified. And so now we're in the shape of what will be the permanent program moving forward. But it does require access with ramps for it to be accessible and level at the right angles, and different barriers that are a little bit more sturdy than some of what was used initially. And I think some restaurants, now that people can dine indoors, they're seeing people want to dine indoors and maybe not justifying the cost of hosting the whole outdoor space as well. It's up to them. We try to make it as easy as possible. We have dedicated staff to support the permitting, and we have templates for how you can lay out your space so that it does meet all the requirements. And so far, we're at 215 or so.
So I saw you looking at your phone to get that number. How many days left in your first term?
It was 500 something. Okay, hold on.
How many?
540.
540. So how's the re-election campaign going?
There will be plenty of time for that. I'm sure I will talk about that on this show when I'm nice
by the way,
and ready.
Marjorie and I on our team went to a couple of events, several nights in a row, from the Bay State Banner one-year gala to a whole bunch of things.
Yep.
Every event we went to, Josh Kraft was at. And obviously people know Josh Kraft, who was head of the Boys and Girls Club. He's now head of the Kraft Family Foundation. There are rumors that he's contemplating running. Do you talk to him?
There are many. Boston is a city where it is world class, so much happening, but also small enough that I bet there were probably 100 people who were at all 3 of those events with you at each of them. And so we get the chance to run into everyone out and about at town. And I have tremendous respect for all the people who are very involved in various ways and supporting the city.
Including him.
I don't have a personal relationship there, but know that there's a lot of work that many people around the city care about and are involved in.
Ed, in the car, you're on with the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu. Hey.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you for taking the call. My question is regarding people who are in a homeless situation. As I myself have been homeless for the past 6 months, I was evicted from my apartment while I was recovering from COVID. So my question is, are there any resources for people in my situation? Because it's been tough, and it's not easy.
Yes, absolutely, Ed. If you can hang on, and we will get your contact information
hang
from
up,
the producers here.
Please.
We would love to connect you with our Office of Housing Stability to make sure you're registered for all the right lists and know the resources available. And sometimes there are programs that can provide relief right away, actually, in supporting housing, providing funds for housing and getting you back on your feet.
Ed, please stay on hold, and we'll get your contact information and immediately forward it to the mayor's office and get you the information the mayor mentioned. Please stick around. Thank you.
You know, Mayor, we always get tons of questions about traffic when you're here. We started with the people in the mopeds delivering the food. Now people complaining about the bike lanes, and that the traffic is getting worse. I know the city council was looking at congestion pricing, which they were thinking about in New York City, but the governor pulled it last minute in New York City. So what do you think about congestion pricing or other ways to make the situation with traffic less horrible?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so with congestion pricing in particular, there's often a bunch of different goals mentioned, and to form the right policy or even to decide the details between a wide range of choices for congestion pricing, you really have to be clear about what you're trying to achieve with it. Some communities want to use it for air quality and to just try to reduce the number of cars in and put a charge so that people actually aren't driving and aren't coming in that way at all. Some traffic reduction is tied to that goal. Some people want it to boost public transportation usage and to see it primarily as a revenue generating mechanism for then having funds that you're collecting that can go into improving public transit or other transportation infrastructure. A lot of what you can choose in that depends on how reliable the public transit alternative is right now. And so we've seen a lot of progress, and I think General Manager Eng is doing an amazing job of really getting things literally on track and fixing slow zones and digging out from decades of deferred maintenance. We're not there yet in the T being a reliable, convenient, or the most reliable and convenient source of transportation. So if we were to put in congestion pricing right now, it would primarily be about generating revenue and kind of pushing people into other options or different times of day if they can afford to, but there are many who can't afford to. So I'm open to continuing to find every possible way that we can fund public transit and fix our transportation system, because that's really the core issue around affordable housing, around the future of downtown. Every major employer I speak to, when I go in to do town halls at some of our large companies, everyone just wants to ask when the T will be fixed and when they can start relying on using it to come back in person again.
You know, Marjorie asked you before about this sidewalk dining thing, and she knows I'm obsessed with it. Marjorie likes it. I don't care how hot it is. I love it. Are you able to do things like that, or you can't because you couldn't have 2 minutes to yourself? Are you able to do things like that?
Yeah, no, I'm out and about a lot by myself.
No. No, I understand that, but can you eat at a restaurant outside and have peace, or no? And
I mean, I think for anyone who is serving at the local level, city councilors, even some of the department heads and cabinet chiefs, we do this because we like the level of government where you're actually able to hear directly from people. So I think usually when I'm with my kids, people are generally very nice and kind of aware of having some family time, but I don't mind at all. I actually think it's important to hear directly from folks outside of just what I hear within City Hall and within my office.
Mendez, you're in Boston. You have a couple of minutes with the mayor of the city of Boston. Hey there.
Hey, how are you guys doing today?
Fine, thanks.
I love you guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Mayor, you're doing a great job. I
Thank
just
you.
got a question about Mass Ave, right?
Yep.
So you guys have the safety patrol officer just going around. It seems like all you guys are doing is just moving people from one street to another, and the issue's not really being solved. I still see people using drugs out in the open. Nobody's really doing nothing but moving them from one street to another. What is the solution there, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mendez. And this is an area where we've been really involving a lot of different departments and community organizations and trying wherever possible to keep improving how we are providing services. So sometimes it may, first I'll just say one thing. This summer, compared to a year ago, we are measuring very carefully kind of what the situation is. We have a crowd count every day and also keep track of the different interactions between the individuals who are at masks and casts and all of our public health and public safety outreach teams. So a year ago in June, the numbers were something like, on average, between 130 or well over 200 people gathered at any given time, lots and lots of tents as well. We have since implemented some policies to more directly connect people to shelter and housing right away, with an ordinance and other provisions that allow public health and public safety to move together. And this year, the numbers have been closer to 30 to 90 on any given day, and no tents. And so there's still a lot more work to do, and each one of those 90 plus people are residents who need access to recovery, housing, treatment, medical support. And so we have mobile outreach teams that are going and interacting. And even when our police officers from our specialized street outreach unit are interacting with people, it is primarily to connect folks to services and recovery. We've actually seen a big increase in the number of people who are opting into what's called our PATHS program for recovery and to get into the pipeline for housing and treatment and all of that. So we've also made some changes to our needle pickup program to promote more of a model where there are jobs associated with this as an income opportunity rather than just a one-off payment of 10 cents per needle picked up or whatever it was previously, to just, again, encourage and provide those pathways for stability, job counseling, housing counseling, and moving people through a pipeline that we have seen is very successful to get to permanent housing and stability.
We have to stop. Mayor Wu, it's wonderful to see you. Enjoy
yes, thank
the
you
summer.
very much.
Thank you
we
so
have
much.
a lot of happy recyclers who've been texting in from South
Meaning
Boston.
what?
Well, they're saying that they get a lot of their stuff at hazardous waste taken. They're not waiting hours to get it taken. So there you go. They're not problems everywhere, I guess.
Well, hazardous waste and recycle. Well, we don't
Well,
have to go
batteries,
there.
lights, gasoline, all those things. That's all hazardous waste. I don't know. What
I'm going to look at the geographic spread of where you can pick it up. That might be an issue here.
I see a lot of mattresses on Alston Brighton, but that's only when the kids
I don't think
move in.
that's hazardous waste, but I know what you mean. Mayor Wu, thank you so much.
Thank you
It's
for
wonderful
having
to
me,
see
as
you,
always.
Mayor Michelle
thank
Wu.
you very, very much for being with us. And thank you very much for the Celtics basketball. This is going to be a big hit in my house. Thank you very much, Mayor. We have been speaking with Boston Mayor Michelle Wu, who's very kind to spend the time with us each month. And we'll see you again next month, Mayor Wu. Thank you very, very much. Coming up.
More smart conversation about community issues is up ahead with Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio. Right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on
House Democrats held a private caucus meeting this morning. Senate Democrats are slated to do the same this afternoon. Meanwhile, former President Donald Trump is holding a campaign rally in South Florida.
Early this morning, forcing the MBTA to deploy shuttle buses on the Red Line between Broadway and Harvard Square. The T-First posted about the incident around 5:50 this morning, and in an update posted shortly before 6, the MBTA reported that personnel were on the scene at Park Street working to remove that derailed vehicle. Officials say repairs to the damaged third rail are expected to take several hours. T spokesman Joseph Pesatoro wrote in an email to the Globe that the MBTA apologizes to Red Line riders affected by this morning's incident. The T, meanwhile, is taking a beating on social media today. Shuttle buses can be boarded at Park Street. There are no shuttle buses at Downtown Crossing. Pesatoro says no injuries were reported. Federal Emergency Management Agency, or FEMA, has approved over $6 million for Massachusetts residents who were affected by last...
Jim Browdy, I am Marjorie Egan. Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, as we do every Tuesday, Wednesday, thank you very much, and Friday. And we are streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. I want to mention we're going to be back here tomorrow with the Attorney General of the Commonwealth, Andrea Campbell. She'll be here between 11 and noon to take our questions and yours. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again, Marjorie. We're joined now at the interview desk by Trenni Casey, anchor and reporter for NBC Sports Boston, and starting very soon, NBC anchor for a huge part of their Olympic coverage, which the Olympics are happening in Paris. As you know, Trenni, it's great to see you. Hi.
Hi, guys.
So they just had these elections over in France. There wasn't the big takeover by the right as people expected, but it's kind of an unclear situation over there. Are you getting any sense, because you're going to be covering the Olympics, I know you're going to be in Hartford and not in Paris, but still.
Stanford, but
Stanford.
Same
Excuse me.
Stanford.
Okay. You're going to be in Stanford. So closer to New York.
Yes, closer to New York.
That would be nice. But anyway, is this impacting people's concerns about the Olympics at all? Or
Not
what?
to the best of my knowledge.
Yeah.
Like every Olympics, we have so many seminars and we talk about security risks and we talk about protecting our devices and whatnot. The only Olympics that I've ever, I guess two, where I felt like there were a lot more conversations around whether it be political unrest or terrorism or just crime, and that was Sochi, as you remember.
Yes.
We had a lot. I think there was a huge amount of extra security there and some fear of some sort of terrorist attack. And then Rio, just honestly, that was sort of everyday street crime. Like I remember being told, if you take an Uber, which we did to dinner at times, make sure your Uber, and you'll notice this, don't be alarmed, they will not stop after dark at stoplights. They will roll through them, because if you stop at a stoplight with a car full of people, you may get carjacked.
Oh, God.
Like we haven't had, those types of conversations. I know that there is going to be a very, very large security presence in Paris, as they always do. I know that we have an extensive security team, both in the U.S. and in Paris, that monitors everything. But I don't get this sense. Like I remember we went to Sochi. The reason I got to go to Sochi, I was a last-minute ad to be the curling reporter because there was a trickle-down effect. Somebody else felt uncomfortable going over. I'm not going to say who it was, but there was another reporter anchor who didn't feel comfortable going over there because there was just a larger threat there of terrorism, possible terrorism. And that person had children and didn't want to go over, and they backed out. And so then they moved somebody else to another position, and they moved me on to curling, and the rest is history. Obviously, knock on wood, all of the events that I've ever covered, all the Olympics I've ever been to, there have not been any major issues. How
many have you been to?
Let's see. Sochi, Rio, Pyeongchang, Tokyo. I was invited to Beijing, but my mom was ill. So my mom was going through chemo at the time, so I stayed
Do you get
back.
that fun, or is it so much work that you don't get to really take in the excitement of the thing?
So you get to have fun. I've never been to an opening ceremony. It's like, that's just hard. Even if you work for NBC, it's hard. You can't get a ticket to it. Although I do one. Although you know what, this is going to be so like it's not going to be able to see the one on the Seine either. It's not like I'm missing out on it by being in Stanford. But you do get to have some fun. Like, you work weird shifts. So I remember in Sochi leaving in the morning to go to curling, to the curling venue, and there being everybody who works like the overnight studio shifts, like in the bar at 6 o'clock in the morning, hanging out, having cocktails. Like that is the one cool thing. And there's a lot of us who are going to be in Stanford, so it'll be a similar sort of vibe. But like you go to the hotel bar and you're like there with like Hoda and Savannah Guthrie or Mike Tirico.
Cool.
Like you see some of the big names. I remember like meeting Chuck Todd over there, or Peter Alexander. Tom Brokaw sat 2 tables over from me in Rio having dinner with Peter Alexander, and I got to meet Tom Brokaw. Like that's someone I've watched since I was a kid.
That's a thrill.
This amazing journalist. And that to me is the cool part. Like I got to meet, this just shows you I'm not just a sports girl. I'm such a news dork. I got to meet Richard Engel, and you would have thought that I met
the foreign correspondent.
Oh my God, I love him.
He's so courageous.
He's a war correspondent. That's when I got into journalism, that's what I really wanted to do. Like I wanted to be on the front lines, and then as like basketball games seem a lot safer.
How about our basketball from the mayor?
I saw that. I heard.
Nice. That's the Boston Celtics basketball.
I hate coming on after the mayor because she always brings you guys stuff.
She does.
But don't feel bad because we never give her anything.
Well, we're not supposed to
you
give her
a
anything.
lot of grief.
By the way, when are you going to be on? If people want to watch, what are your hours? What's your shift?
I'll be on E. So if you love to watch E, whatever's that's not. I'm not a reality TV person.
I watch E for the red carpet.
There you
for
go.
all the major award shows.
There you go.
Kidding me?
Actually, I do too. So I'll be on E Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Oh,
and then on the weekends I'll be on E and CNBC from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
That's really exciting.
So listen, it's an awesome opportunity. I can't wait. I'm a little nervous because I've never been a studio host for something this big. But once you do it, it's like riding a bike.
You look great on TV, I must say.
Yeah, Marjorie, that's not the issue. I don't know if you're aware. You actually have to do something.
Wait till you see me now. Like now I do my own hair and makeup and I pick out my own clothes. Like there's no one like tailoring everything. Like now I'm going to have a whole glam squad.
Well, apparently Marjorie doesn't care what you say. So as long as you have a glam squad, you're fine.
When he starts on this, it just kills me.
Okay.
Does it matter how women look on TV? Yes,
it matters.
It does.
Yes, it does.
Be nice if they can say something too. Would you agree with that?
But you are a man, Jim.
I am a man.
In fairness, Jim, a lot of times when I see, we have a million TVs, like you guys do. You have TVs on everywhere when you're at work. Like I'll see a friend of mine up on TV and I'll be like, oh, that's a great outfit. And then I'll text her and tell her how great she looks. I have no idea what she's saying, but I'm assuming she's saying wonderful, intelligent things.
Okay, fine.
Exactly.
So let me tell you two things pre-Olympics that have me really excited. One, I don't even know if we've talked about this.
No.
This 16-year-old kid, this Quincy Wilson sprinter kid, who 16 years old, who was picked to be on one of the relay teams. He came in 6th or something in his final, so he didn't make it into his 400-meter race, whatever.
Right.
That's one.
But handpicked.
He's going to the Olympics, 16 years old. The other thing is this Cooper Flagg kid who is not going to the Olympics. This is a high school senior from Maine. He was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He's a cover of the Boston Globe. He's gone to Duke.
Yes.
He's on, I don't know what the name of the team is.
So it's like the Team USA select team.
Right,
So
it's a team that practices with
against Team USA. So what, Jim, this name, I didn't know this name until today, Cooper Flagg. And it's on the front page, as you pointed out, it's on the front page of everything. We're talking about it in my show note today. He's a 17-year-old kid from Maine, 6'8", power forward, going to Duke. And he is this unbelievable basketball player. And yesterday, playing against LeBron James, Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant, Anthony Edwards, like the best of the best from basketball. I think the sequence over like 20 seconds was he hit a three-pointer, then he went down, and I think he stole the ball or grabbed the rebound off an Anthony Edwards miss, pushed it up the court to a kid who I don't even know what his name is. I don't think any of you would know who he is. The kid misses a three, but Cooper Flagg is there. He's like, so not only a good offensive player, but a good defensive mind. He goes, he grabs the rebound, and then gets a little like tip in. And
17, he has not even started college.
Nope.
He's going to Duke. Obviously, he's going to play 1 year and then become a pro.
Yeah, he's going to be a one and done. He'll probably be in the 2025 NBA draft. He'll probably be the number 1 overall pick in the 2025 NBA draft.
Now, here's a question about regionalism. This is a bias, and maybe I'm just ignorant about it, but I don't think of many superstar basketball players
coming from
Maine.
Because they don't.
They don't. So where do they come from? I don't know. California, big cities.
Fall River. How about Fall River?
That's right. Chris Herron came from Fall River. That's right. He was a big star. In the last
a lot of the kids I feel like Jason Tatum is a St. Louis kid. Right. Jaylen Brown's a California kid.
Yeah. Kobe Bryant was California, wasn't he?
Kobe Bryant was Philadelphia.
No, Philadelphia.
Oh.
Like when you think of it, you think of like Chicago has a pretty big Dwayne Wade went to Marquette and obviously played for the Heat and won a title there. He was like a Chicago kid. I mean, listen. Now, all of youth sports, everything's AAU and moving around. So if you're good at something, a surprising number of decent basketball players, like Sam Hauser, who plays for the Celtics. Listen, he's not a star, but he's a great three-point shooter. He's a good kid that comes off the bench. He's from Stevens Point, Wisconsin.
What about Massachusetts?
Julius Erving went to UMass.
Yeah, but he wasn't from here.
Well, that's good enough.
There's actually a kid, and now I'm blanking out his name because I'm on the spot. But there's a kid from Massachusetts who plays for Marquette. He was like one of their big blue chip recruits.
Why do you care? Who cares?
I'm just curious. Is it because we don't have our teams aren't that good, or we don't take basketball that seriously?
Patrick Ewing is from Cambridge. How about him?
He's from Cambridge, but that was a long time ago.
Ramil Robinson, who hit the free throws for Michigan at the end of the national championship to win the national championship. How about that?
When was
Cambridge kid.
When was that?
1877.
I was going to say,
no, like
it was
20 years ago.
Pre-World War I, but it's
no,
fine.
it was not. It was like 10 years ago.
I was just surprised to see somebody from Maine, and good for him.
Listen, Massachusetts is sort of seen, to your point, we're seen more as a hockey, right? Like when you think about those more niche sports, like this is a hockey area, this is a field hockey, lacrosse is big here, soccer is big here, football.
Yeah.
It's also a smaller pool. So.
Okay, I don't really care who's from Maine, to be perfectly honest. But here's what I do care about. A guy is riding in the Tour de France, staying in France. And he, according to the federation in charge, behaved in an unseemly, inappropriate way that caused damage to the sport. We have sound somewhere here. My apologies, got to move the basketball. Here's a clip from the Tour de Force coverage as France's Julien Bernard stopped just for a fleeting moment. Well, let's not be specific, to enjoy a moment with his family. Here it is.
And the number of people he's actually come to a standstill just to say hello to the family on the climb. That's a really special moment for Julien Bernard.
So what unseemly, inappropriate, damaging thing did he do?
He kissed his wife and baby hello while he went through his town. He's from Burgundy, the region of Burgundy, which is my favorite wine in the whole world, in France. And so, listen, I'm newly sort of into cycling. Like, this is really the first time, like, I've kind of gotten up in the morning and I'll turn on my Peacock app and I'll watch the Tour de France. Tour de France. But I have a friend who's really, really into cycling, and she was explaining to me that this is even more ludicrous because one of the traditions along the tour is that if you are a French rider and you go through like your village, it is known that everybody celebrates that rider as they come through, and everybody, pats them on the back, and they close in, and you kind of come back from the peloton so that you're not disrupting everybody else. It's like, come on. This made headlines initially for being a wonderful moment. And then the UCI fined him. Now, the fine was minimal. It was like $233 or something. It was like 200 francs, which, do they even use francs anymore anywhere? I don't think so. Which is, I thought so. I know it's euros. I know it's euros, but it said in the story francs, so I was very confused.
Okay, francs. No one knows if it's francs or not, so let's say francs.
It's it's like $233 is what the guy was fined. So not that big of a deal. And he's also not, he's not a yellow jersey rider. I think he came, it was a time trial.
Yellow jerseys when you win your
stage.
Right, okay.
And so, it's just so silly. And it's a sport where, to me, if you're sort of a niche sport, but you have a moment that goes viral, just embrace it, because maybe then you get new eyes on the sport and the sport grows and then there's more money for it. That's like a trickle-down effect. And let's be honest, cycling doesn't exactly have the best reputation because for a long time everybody was just known as a bunch of dopers.
Whatever happened, speaking of dopers, Lance Armstrong, whatever happened to Lance Armstrong?
He has you know what? It's funny you ask that because I was like, oh, whatever. Like, first of all, there's no decent U.S. cyclers that are even in contention. I can't tell you the last time.
You mean the Olympics?
No, in the Tour de France.
Oh, Tour de France, okay.
But I was on Peacock to watch because I wanted to watch. I think his name is Mark Cavendish or Cavendish. He's a
Cavendish. Thank you. Hannah just told us she's a cyclist.
Oh,
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Hannah.
Mark Cavendish had this amazing end. He had a chance to win his record-breaking 35th stage. He's 39 years old. He's had a ton of injuries. He's a legend in the sport, and he sprinted forward, and it was this unbelievable moment. But he got fined because he came off his line or something towards the end to celebrate that he won his 35th stage, which is a record that will probably, according to the very smart people who commentate on Peacock, is never going to happen again. And he was fine. It's just take that moment and let it help the sport, not hurt the sport.
Are these French rules?
I think they're the governing body of cycling, which is
they're very anal over there.
They are. They are.
Very
they love
in Maine, by the way.
They love to protest. Speaking of anal, they love to protest.
They do love to protest. Now, I want to point out that texters are informing me that Michael Carter from Ipswich or Hamilton is in the NBA. You ever heard of him?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, and AJ DeBonsta?
Who?
AJ DeBonsta?
Who?
From Boston?
Exactly. I love him.
Don't know.
Okay.
Who else? Who else?
That's it.
That's great.
Yep.
Okay, and by the way,
Michael Carter, yes. The other one I do not.
Well, what?
We have male gymnasts from Massachusetts.
No, Marjorie, no one cares about this at all. At all. At all. Does anybody care about? Excuse me. Who cares what famous basketball players came from Maine? Raise your hand.
I'm moving on.
Not really. I'm not buying that. Thank you. Okay, can we move ahead, or we have to discuss this ridiculous topic?
We have people on that. Okay, just one more thing. We have Olympic gymnasts from Massachusetts.
Yeah, we do from Worcester
Fred
and whatever.
From Stoughton and Steve
from Worcester.
Nedorosik, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Sure you are.
Worcester.
That's true, male gymnast
That's
on
fabulous.
Team USA.
Okay, can we go from $230, as you call it, to many billions of dollars? I don't really understand why the Celtics are
for sale.
And Shirley Leung had this fabulous interview with with Wick Grossbeck, whose family is selling their share, which I guess is a majority share. And it seemed, my takeaway from the thing is money doesn't matter. All that matters is championships. And about a minute and a half after they win the championship, and everybody says he's been a great owner. And
it was literally 2 weeks to the day.
Was it really?
They won the championship on a Monday. They had the parade the following Friday. Then there was a week in between. And then the Monday that I returned to work from my vacation, the Celtics were up for sale.
So is there a backstory here that we're missing?
If you haven't read, if you have a chance, read Dan Shaughnessy does this sort of like notes and news column every Sunday.
I love those.
His lead in this is that he talked to people very close to the Grossbeck family. And this is something that I had heard as well. It was, just sort of scuttlebutt around the team. But that it wasn't Wick's decision to sell, that it is Irv Grossbeck's. His father. And Irv is really the money behind it. So Dan, through his reporting, has been able to find out that Irv owns the majority of the majority. Wick has a very small, maybe as small as 2% actual monetary investment in the team. Irv is about to be 90. He's getting his affairs in order. They're going to cash in. This team, they bought it in 2002 for $360 million. It is worth anywhere between, depending on where you look for valuations, 4.7 to 5.2 billion with a B dollars. Now that's a total valuation. But you're still probably looking at, $2 to $3.5 billion that the Grossbeck family would get from the sale of this.
Wow.
And then he'll put it in, I'm sure, a will and a trust for he has four children. They've got to feed the kids somehow.
That's right.
And I know this is going to sound crazy to people, but I actually don't think it's a bad idea to look down the road and try to find wealthier owners. If you look at lists of the wealthiest owners in sports, but also and I use this term somewhat loosely, the poorest owners in sports, Wick and Pags are two of the poorest owners in sports. Their net worths combined are less than $1 billion.
Oh.
Contrast that against a Robert Kraft, who I believe is worth somewhere in the vicinity of maybe like $11 billion. I think John Henry, who of course owns East Fenway Sports Group, so he owns the Liverpool. He owns obviously the Red Sox.
Pittsburgh Penguins.
The Pittsburgh Penguins. They're interested in buying an NBA team, so keep an eye there. He's worth like $7 or $8 billion.
Different league.
And you have to pay. There's going to be a big luxury tax bill. I don't want to get too in the weeds on this,
please.
but basically they've signed all these players to big contracts. They have 2 super max contracts in Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like next year, I think their tax bill is going to be like $100 million, and then the year or two after that, it's going to be $200. It's going to get close to $300 million just in taxes. And if you're not fluid and you don't have that money and you're worth $400 million, you can't just dip into your account and pay a $300 million tax bill. But a billionaire 10 times over sure can. And if they want to keep winning, it might not be the worst thing to shift it to somebody who has a little more financial flexibility.
Okay, Trenni, the issue that you're not addressing that I think everybody wants to know is how many NBA owners are from Maine? That I think is the...
No, I don't think any, but I don't know that for sure.
You don't know. If you can check and call us back a little bit.
Yes. We haven't heard of AJ DeBonsta from Boston, who's playing at St. Sebastian's, because apparently he's still in high school, so maybe he hasn't made the big move
There
yet.
you go. There you
Under
go.
17, so that makes him 16, I guess.
Or even,
that's why we haven't heard of him yet.
That's a very good point, Marjorie. Or maybe even 15. Is that true?
We have somebody else.
The question is, does he see coyotes on the regular, as I see Sue O'Connell over there?
No, she sees fake coyotes. Stay tuned.
I saw.
NBA champion Pat Connaughton. St. John's Prep in Danvers.
I forgot about Pat Connaughton. He won a title with the Milwaukee Bucks.
There you go.
So
things are picking up around here in
one of the things I don't... We've had this discussion before. I understand some people are upset with John Henry, who owns the Red Sox, for not spending enough money, whatever, even though the Red Sox are doing fabulously well this year.
They're 9 games over 500.
I read a story this morning. Is John Henry going to be in the bidding for the basketball team? Allegedly wants a basketball team. Oh, no, that'd be horrible. We hate John Henry. Why do we hate John? John Henry won 4 championships after 86 years of horrible baseball teams, with a couple of exceptions.
No one has forgotten that.
So, and why does anybody? Do people think he wants? I mean, I assume people think he wants to lose if he buys the whatever they're called, the Celtics.
The Celtics, whatever they're called, the Celtics.
Yeah, the Celtics.
I think what people are concerned with. Listen, if you told us there were 3 people in the bidding, and it was the Jacobs family, the Kraft family, and the John Henry group, most people in sports would say, fine, let John Henry buy it. He's got the most money. He's done it before. He knows how to do it. The problem is John Henry hates paying luxury taxes. And he is going to have to, in 3 or 4 years, make a very difficult decision. Do you start trading away salary and shedding salary, or do you pay luxury taxes? And I think people are afraid that he will do with the Celtics, which is what he has now done with the Red Sox, which is, I'm not in the bidding anymore. I'm not paying it. And it's not that anyone doesn't appreciate what John Henry did before, but like, I say this all the time, like, you have pride in your job, and if you were investing money into, GBH, would you suddenly just say, well, we won, 4 Murrow Awards. We can just, it doesn't matter if we're good now, just as long as we're bringing money in. Like, that's what makes people angry, is that there was a standard of excellence for the Red Sox for a long time, and that bar has been lowered. Like,
well,
right now,
are doing great
they
right
are
now.
doing. But okay, so they're doing great right now, right? They're 9 games over 500. They have the 3rd wild card spot. They've played really well against the Yankees, so they're within, I think, 4.5 games of the Yankees in the AL East. They're a young upstart team who has a good farm system, and the trade deadline is coming. Now, most teams, including mine, middle of the road, well, they're leading the NL Central. Milwaukee Brewers, even they made a small trade. It wasn't a big trade, but they went out and got a pitcher because their pitching has been decimated by injuries. The Red Sox pitching has been okay. They could really use a lefty or 2 in their rotation and in their bullpen. But just today, Craig Breslow, who's the president of baseball operations, is gone on record saying, I'm not sure if we're going to add to this team. This is a team that's young and would benefit from a playoff run, and they may actually subtract pieces to fill up their farm system some more and save some money instead of trying to make a run in the postseason. That's why people are frustrated.
Do you know where John Henry went to camp when he was a kid?
Camp Anabar?
Maine.
Oh, Maine.
He went to Camp Maine. Actually, I have no idea. Trenni, it's great to see you. Are we going to see you again before the Olympics?
Yes, yeah.
Great,
I'm here
fabulous.
next week for
We're
sure.
really excited
I
about
thought
this.
perhaps
I can't
you
wait
were
to watch it.
fellow campers, Jim.
I went to Camp Anabar. It's Rubino backwards. And let's not talk about what I achieved when I was there.
Most improved camper 2 years in a row.
Okay, Marjorie.
So you can only imagine.
No, it was humiliating to win Most Improved Camper. The reason, Marjorie,
Did you roast your
to
marshmallow
win it a
better?
second year is really humiliating. And I did. I won it 2 years in a row.
The basement.
Okay, Marjorie, I think it's self-explanatory. Thank you.
Okay.
Pitched a tent even
And by the
better
way,
in
in
year
all
2.
seriousness, do you know where Camp Anabar really is?
No.
In New York?
In Maine.
It is?
Wait, isn't it in Maine?
I don't know.
I don't know. We
I
don't
think
know,
it's in
Jim.
Maine. I don't remember.
Okay.
Okay,
Jim,
goodbye.
I didn't go to camp in the
Nice to see
1930s.
you.
Locked it out.
Nice
We've
to see
been
you.
speaking with Trenni Casey, anchor reporter
I
for
think it's in
NBC
Maine.
Sports Boston. Thank you very much, Trenni. Coming up after this quick break, our media maven, Coyote
It's not in
Charmer.
Maine. Camp Kennebec. I went. That was in Maine.
Okay.
Camp Anabar somewhere
were you
else.
most approved
We
camper
didn't-
there,
No, it was
too?
not. It was most in Pennsylvania. Thank you.
Pennsylvania.
Anna is like answer woman
She
today.
knows everything.
Thank you.
Okay. Coming up after this quick break, our media maven, Coyote Charmer, and favorite local woman, Sue O'Connell, is back fresh from covering the Karen Reed trial. She, of course, is the woman who was accused of running over her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. We're going to get her a retrospective on the trial. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH. We are live from the Boston Public Library, and we are streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
We listen to what matters to you.
I'm reporter Craig Lamolt.
I'm reporter Marilyn Sharon.
Do you have a tip?
Want to offer feedback
Invite us to an event?
or want to participate in a listening session?
Feel free to reach out to us.
Email gbhnewsconnect at wgbh.org.
GBH News Connect at wgbh.org.
We'd love to hear from you.
Making you part of our newsroom. GBH News Connect at wgbh.org.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Comcast Business, committed to providing connectivity for your business with network and cybersecurity solutions. Comcast Business, powering possibilities. Restrictions apply. To learn more, you can call or visit comcastbusiness.com. And Auschwitz, not long ago, not far away, an exhibition featuring over 700 historic artifacts from the Holocaust. Now open at the Castle at Park Plaza in Boston. More at theauschwitzexhibition.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan. We're broadcasting live from the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Back here tomorrow with the Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, 11 to noon. We're joined now at the interview desk by a local woman who used to spend all her free time in Canton, well, actually Dedham, for some reason. That would be Sue O'Connell. She was obviously covering the Karen Reeve trial wall to wall. Sue's co-publisher of Bay Windows, South End News, co-host of NBC 10 Boston's That Issue every Sunday at 11:30. Following Meet the Press, welcome back, Sue O'Connell.
Gosh, I missed you so much.
We missed you, actually, too. We really did.
But I tell you, talk about a trial that captured the imagination
Still
of
going on.
not just around here in
Yes.
Boston, greater Boston, but in Dedham and the country, and it was international news.
Yes.
So give us some highlights. What was it like? What went on?
Well, my job, my charge, because I'm not usually a court reporter or covering legal issues like this, my job was to be an observer of what happens in the courtroom that people couldn't see on camera. And I went in there pretty fresh. I didn't do any deep dives on the prior filings, so I was supposed to experience it as close to being a juror as humanly possible. So when evidence got introduced that people were like, whoa, reporters said, well, we knew that was coming. I didn't. So I tried to experience this case just like a juror. But I also, because I'm not a reporter, I didn't have to really be very strict about how I was posting things. Like I didn't have to say ADA Adam Alley, quote. I just went, Allie looks flustered, So I got to just do these social media posts. It was originally just supposed to be for jury selection when there were no cameras for 3 or 4 days, but it just took off for me, and I was in there for 40 days covering the entire trial, so it was amazing.
Well,
How would you have voted? Whoa. As a faux juror,
Yeah.
how would you have voted on the 3 charges?
Yep, so I don't think that the Commonwealth met the threshold that would overcome reasonable doubt. And for me, it was the initial investigation of the Canton police and the state police that I just think there were too many questions. And then the final testimony from the accident reconstructionists that were hired by the FBI that said that they didn't believe that John O'Keefe was likely to have been hit by a vehicle. That, for me, was what the threshold was.
So there's a motion we're all reading about now made by Karen Reeve's lawyers suggesting that through intermediaries, they learned that on 2 of the counts, including the most serious count, please correct me when I make a mistake here, that the jury was 12 zip for acquittal, for not guilty. That never came out in the courtroom, and they're asking that those charges be dismissed. Now, at the same time, a pretty good reporter, Frank Phillips, who used to be head of the State House Bureau of the Globe, he's retired, sort of, he tweeted that a very good source of his said almost the opposite, that he had heard from, again, a reliable source, that the jury on the second-degree murder charge was 10-2 for conviction, which is the same thing that another really good reporter, even though he's not like for a major outlet, Grant Ellis Smith, who does fabulous work.
Who hates me and calls me a pedophile.
He does, really?
Yes.
I'm sorry to hear that.
He does?
He does great cannabis work, whatever. He is cannabis commission stuff. He also said that he had heard from a reliable source who was 10-2 for conviction.
Well, he's also not been allowed at the courthouse because of a restraining order. So he had.
Well, I don't think Frank's is in the courtroom either.
No, but he was quoting Frank.
Okay. Oh, he was
I'm
quoting
pretty
Frank.
sure he was
okay,
quoting
so
Frank.
A restraining order?
Yes, because of the mishigas that happened outside the courthouse among the. Anyway.
Can we hear what? So what do you hear?
So I heard from a reliable source the day that the verdict came down that it was not guilty on the first charge, and then
which was murder,
second-degree murder, and then on the second or third charge it was 10-2 not guilty. But because I'm actually a news person who works for a news organization, I didn't report it because I couldn't confirm it. I had one source who was a little soft on it. So while everybody was out there saying, oh, it was 10-2 guilty, I'm like, I don't think that it is. So we don't know yet. And I would also caution people, because depending on what side you're on, you always want to hear with your own internal bias, and you want to get your confirmation bias. As Judge Bev Canoni told us in the trial, and as I'm sure you know, Jim, just because it's presented as evidence or testimony or that the lawyers put it forward doesn't mean that that's absolutely what happened. So none of us have talked to the jurors.
This we're talking about is what the jury theoretically voted until it's public in the courtroom and stamped with approval for what it's worth by the judge. it doesn't exist.
We don't know. So we don't know if that's true. I mean, I think that it sounds directionally true compared to what I've heard from other people. But, I mean, the judge didn't poll the jury, so we don't know. She is now...
Do you know why she didn't?
I don't. And she put an order forward that they can't be approached. Their identities are being protected. Because it was a mistrial, there's also some law about if the trial was completed or if it wasn't completed. That's beyond my area of expertise. But we won't know.
The names would become public if there was a formal acquittal or conviction.
Usually they hand you the sheet and go, here are the names, and then later you can get their addresses and speak to them. So we won't know until a couple of jurors speak on the record when they're allowed to, and if we believe them, that's what happened. But I think it's crucial information for the Commonwealth to have. I mean, both the defense. I mean, the defense is going to be the defense regardless of what happens. But if the Commonwealth is really going to bring this case again, they should know how the jurors voted, I think.
Well, I'm embarrassed since I'm the only lawyer in this. But they have said, at least for public consumption on all charges, you don't know if that's true or not, but that's what they've said.
Okay, so for someone who has been transfixed by this trial, and I wish I were you because I would have loved that. It was one of my favorite things when I was a reporter to cover trials. This one fascinated me. But I wasn't in there, and as I've learned, if you weren't there, you don't really know what you're talking about. So I don't know what I'm talking about. But just from the basic following of this, the logical thing, often it's the easiest explanation that makes sense. So I figured what happened, heavy night of drinking, they may or may not have had a big fight, I don't know, but that she accidentally backed into him and then drove home and then panicked at 4 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was, where is John? The idea of the people inside pulling someone out of a snowdrift, bringing them into the house, beating them to death, and then bringing them back out again. I figured if that is how it happened, that he may have fallen or something, and then they brought him back out. He hit his head or was knocked out.
But you don't have to prove that. You only have to create reasonable doubt.
Right. So I guess I'm wondering, what is the people who have been there, what is their theory of what happened from what you can gather?
The defense actually, and I understand that this was also a unique situation, they didn't just offer one idea. They offered like 6 or 7 theories of what they thought happened, and actually accused softly a number of the witnesses for the prosecution. They were not allowed to introduce in their opening statements the third party idea that somebody else. They actually had a third party, fourth party, fifth party, sixth party theories of what they said happened. So during the trial, and I feel a lot of sympathy and empathy for Assistant District Attorney Adam Lally, who did this case all by himself every single day, arguing and asking the questions while the defense had a full team of people.
Excuse me. This is what happens an awful lot of times if you have the money, and she did because people fundraise. I think, was it $375,000?
There's a lot.
Legal talent is everything in a trial, and the Commonwealth, the prosecution is almost always out-lawyered when somebody has money.
Not because they're not talented, but because the other side has huge resources to do things the state may not.
Adam Lally had to do, besides prosecuting or trying to prosecute Karen Reed, is he also had to run this kind of trial. It's kind of like Inception, a trial within a trial within a trial. He was putting up his witnesses and then presenting a defense on how they couldn't have done or been accused of doing what the defense had yet to accuse them of. So it was incredibly confusing for the jury. Like, why do I care if this lady did this Google search? She's not being accused of anything, is she? And so it was a huge
Sisyphean.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that's the right word.
Right.
I know what you're trying to say, but I don't know how to say it either.
Pushing up the hill and having to do it over and over.
A bunch of additional questions.
So do I.
I either said to, Marjorie or I said to either former federal judge Nancy Gertner or former prosecutor and former Secretary of Public Safety Andrea Cabral last week, I have never seen a murder trial where during the murder trial the defendant spoke to the press. I've never seen that my whole life. And whoever we were speaking to, either Judge Gertner or Andrea Cabral, said they had never seen it either. I mean, you're not a lawyer, but you've followed this. It's really unusual for a lawyer to even allow their client to talk.
Not only that, Jim, but I would say that Karen Reed was involved in her defense. Like, when I first started watching her in the case, I thought, well, they're managing her. Right? She wants to be involved in the case, and they're giving her things to do to make her feel like she was involved, because that's what I would do if I were a defense attorney. But as the case went on and watching her, she's the one who immediately noticed that the video that the Commonwealth showed of the Sally Port in Canton was reversed. It was an inverted.
That's incredible.
She's the one that noticed. She's the one that called the attention to it. So she was not only talking to the press and by many accounts been out and about doing stuff, but was also involved in her defense. So it's such a unique case in every single level.
So how much did it hurt that the lead investigator, the state police officer Proctor, who has now been suspended without pay, called her awful names and was looking for nude photographs on her phone, etc.
Yeah, I will say that if we ever do get to talk to the jury, which at the time this happened, it was a majority female. Remember, there were first 19, then 17 jurors. They had overstacked the deck, so they would make sure they had alternates. At the time of Trooper Proctor's testimony, it was a majority female jury. And the looks on their faces, like I've been doing my best to not read the minds of the jurors, but when those words that he texted to his boss and to his colleagues on his personal phone, their mouths were agape, they shook their heads, they were shocked.
Which we only knew about because
there's
of
a federal
the
investigation,
FBI.
yes, into this, which of course the jurors didn't know about, which is the other part of it.
Can I say one thing about this? You and I, Marjorie, we just had the mayor here for an hour. With the mayor, the governor, the attorney general, we often complain about discipline of rogue police officers, either outcomes or how long they take. This thing was like lightning, as it should have been. The most serious penalty, my understanding, is that could have been exacted yesterday, at least so far, was suspension without pay, which is exactly what he deserved, based on the facts that I know, and exactly what he got yesterday. So the
governor had some very harsh words for Proctor.
After some people I know, like you and Joan Vanocchi, loudly said, "Where's the governor? Why is she not speaking about this?"
Well, she did eventually speak about it. I believe the word she used was disgusting.
Do you know what case Proctor was a lead investigator on that's coming up?
Yes, the Brian Walsh case.
Brian Walsh.
Explain who Brian Walsh is and who he allegedly killed.
He allegedly killed his wife, Ann Walsh, and he was indicted. And Proctor was, her body, I don't believe, was found. I think that it's a case being brought without Anna Walsh's body, but he's the lead investigator.
So what are they going to do there?
You know, what's that list that you go on if you're not allowed to be called anymore because you're an unreliable witness?
Well, that was that great list that was put together by Rachel Rollins, by the way, in the Suffolk County DA's office.
I mean, I would say one thing about this, which I keep asking people, regardless of what your viewpoint on this case is. If you are a citizen who pays taxes, you should be wondering how your tax dollars are training your police, whether it is the local police, your municipal police, the state police, because clearly, I believe if the state police and the Canton police had responded appropriately, and if you ask any Uber driver what the steps would be to take to initially investigate this case, if you're the first responders, the Uber drivers know more than what happened in this case. So we should be, I know the defund the police idea has been heralded and shot down in many ways. It shouldn't be defund the police. It should be, how are we funding the police and where is the money going for their training? Because I wouldn't have collected blood samples in the snow in red Solo cups. And I haven't been to the police academy.
So one thing I did feel was a legitimate complaint, and Paul O'Keefe, the brother of John O'Keefe, who died, who was the guardian of his niece and nephew, whose parents had died when they were very young.
And we should say John O'Keefe, always, trying to center him in this conversation, because by all accounts, a tragic death of someone who was so important in everyone's lives and beloved by everyone who
and to those kids.
The
other thing that troubles me about this case is she was his girlfriend. She supposedly loved this guy. They were together for 2 years, and she's claiming she didn't do it. I know defense lawyers will say don't take the stand, but if you had nothing to hide,
I would never take the stand.
You wouldn't?
Never.
Why?
Who was the last defendant who took a stand in any murder case?
It opens you up. Who cares about people? If your life is on the line, whether you did it or not, taking the stand opens you up. First of all, you're not a professional testifier, right? You're just a human being who either did a bad thing or is accused of a bad thing. The last thing you should do is ever take the stand.
But people do. I mean, people do all the time. take
Murder
this-
cases?
Yes.
How often?
Dirk Grenadier, I covered his case. The
What
guy
happened
who
to
killed
him?
His, he
Where'd
was
he go?
convicted.
Exactly.
He was convicted.
Exactly.
The guy who killed his kids.
Okay, next.
happened to him?
what-
He was convicted. Yeah. But
I can't wait for Marjorie's law firm to open.
But but that was odd,
Okay.
and I think it was odd that
it's not odd.
Was
It's
not.
common. It's
It
common.
would have been odd if she had testified.
Well, I don't think it's as uncommon as you guys think it is. I don't think.
How many? Let's put it the other way. How many murder cases that you reported on where the defendant testified was he or she acquitted?
I don't remember. I have to go back and back and look.
Next
but it's
question.
not so odd. But he did kind of get lost in the shuffle.
Well, he did, and I mean, this is unfortunately, it's
a media problem.
It's what happened. Well, it's a media problem, and it's also, I keep saying that I believe that the first cave painting was actually a crime painting. Like our fascination with true crime is part of our DNA.
Yeah,
and
but
these
you
things
left
really-
out something. The caveman actually testified in his own defense in that case.
Now, one last thing.
I'm not done either.
Oh, you're not done either?
You
Okay.
go, you go.
Well, I was going to say, there's a picture of you swirling about
A video,
Twitter,
yeah.
a video of
Mhm.
you talking to Karen Reed's mother.
Yes.
Tell us what this is all about.
Yes, and my friend Grant Ellis Smith is posting it saying that I am stroking Mrs. Reed's hand and I've been best friends with the Reed family. Well, I didn't know the Reed family before this case. I don't know them until this case. And as I said, I was supposed to be this innocent in this trial of experiencing like a juror. So the second day of the trial, I didn't want to be in the media scrum because I didn't want to be standing behind with not because I didn't know where to go. That's kind of the truth. I would have been wandering around like a. So I went up against the side of the stairway and I was standing there like this, trying not to get involved. And Mr. and Mrs. Reed, Karen's parents, walked by. I thought that might be Mr. Reed, but I wasn't sure. And Mrs. Reed turned to me and she grabbed me her left arm on my right arm and said, "Sue O'Connell, I'm such a fan. I'm Karen Reed's mother." And I said,
God.
"Oh, hello, Mrs. Reed," because I love watching you on Greater Boston.
There you go.
On GBH. What is Jim Browdy doing? Is he coming back? And I said, "No, I think Jim is the show coming back? I really want to see that show."
There you go.
And I'm thinking,
Is the show coming back?
I don't think so.
Okay, go ahead.
It might be. I don't know. It's on hiatus. That's what I hear. And
By the way, for the record, that was Sue O'Connell, not GBH employee Jim Browdy. Go ahead, Sue.
And so she walked away, and I thought, well, how interesting. This is so on brand for Jim that her daughter is on trial for murder, and she wants to talk about Jim Browdy.
Did you give her my number?
I did. I said, call him
Thank
up.
you.
So, of course, people are putting it out there that I was stroking her hand because I was actually trying to step away because I saw some of the bloggers coming to move away from her. But apparently on TikTok, Reddit, at dinner parties, I am best friends with Mrs. Reed because of Jim Browdy.
And Mrs. Reed, thank you for your support for the show.
Okay.
So one last thing.
I have one last
Aidan
thing.
Kearney, Turtle Boy,
Yes.
who I think it's fair to say his advocacy, which some people find reprehensible, some people find to be heroic in support of Karen Reed, has his own trial coming up, which is unaffected by this mistrial, this hung jury thing. What's the status of that?
So he's charged with a couple of counts of witness intimidation and another couple of serious federal charges. And I believe there's a hearing coming up. Aidan maintains that it's an overreach by the district attorney's office in a way
That he's a reporter, he says.
Punish him for what he did. He has gone by these witnesses' houses. They claim that they have been harassed. He has chased after them. There are videos of it. He says he was just doing reporting, not the kind of reporting that any of us would do by any means. But they're claiming witness harassment. He was not allowed to be in the courtroom when several witnesses were testifying, including the Albert family and Jem McCabe. In his hearing, the next step is coming up. There have been a number of missteps on the Commonwealth side on this case as well, where some of the discovery that was due to Aidan Kearney's lawyer was not put forward. So this is another case that we should look at, not just about the seriousness of the charges, but also if the Commonwealth is able to execute this case.
Well, by the way,
wait. Do you have any idea if his mother is upset that I'm not doing Greater Boston anymore, or you don't have direct knowledge? Okay.
By the way, we should point out their salaries have gone up, but you are not making a lot of money when you're an assistant district attorney in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They used to have to work weekend jobs to pay their bills. They've gone up, but they don't pay them nearly enough.
Well, public defenders make crap too. These were not public defenders
They were not
here,
public defenders,
but they make
it's kind
crap
of like
too.
people don't know how
And look,
shaky the court system is till you actually see it.
I asked Alan Jackson after one bit of testimony
Reed's lead lawyer.
where the witness was shocked that he had evidence, technological evidence, that she was not perhaps saying exactly what happened. And she was surprised by it. And after the day was over, I went up to Alan Jackson and said, she looked surprised to me that she was asked that. Wasn't she prepped? And he went, we sent them pages and pages and pages and pages of data that they probably didn't have the time to go through. So to your point. Yep.
Okay, so one last thing. So you said you didn't think the Commonwealth proved their case, but you were there for 40 days. What do you think happened?
Oh, there were so many theories put forward. I would have no idea. I mean, I think that something happened to him, to John O'Keefe.
You mean that he was hit by the car?
I don't think he was hit by the car.
As opposed to walking into the house?
I don't know if he went in the house. I've disregarded all of the GPS evidence because it was so contradictory to me. And sometimes my Apple Watch says it's time to stand up, and I've been standing for 5 hours.
Yeah.
So I don't know what happened to him. I don't think he was hit by a car. I do think that had he been found earlier, he would probably still be alive today. It's surprising to me that no one saw him on the lawn.
So how did the taillight break?
Well, that's one of the things that is in, if you look at all the evidence that was presented, the life of the taillight does not necessarily match a theory that it shattered when it hit him. And you had a Dighton police officer who testified after he was at Karen Reed's parents' house while they were questioning her that the taillight was cracked with one piece missing. So, this is the kind of evidence that if it's not in a line, or at least narratively going in the right direction, it's reasonable
I tell
doubt.
you, this discussion is going to be longer than the trial. Let's move on, and we'll as there are new
We're out of
developments.
time here,
No, we're
Jim.
not out of time.
Okay.
Because this is really important.
All right.
So everybody knows that the way you became famous as a local woman in the Boston Globe
After being here.
was when you and your dog encountered a coyote. In wherever the hell you live in Boston.
Fort Hill, Roxbury.
Whatever it is.
Yes.
And apparently you were on Nantucket, which is fairly ritzy, I should say,
I was
for a local woman.
But I was freeloading. So.
And you and your dog, what's the dog's name?
Maud.
Maud and you encountered yet another coyote. Please briefly describe that experience.
So I'm walking, it's like, early in the morning, our first morning on Nantucket. I'm walking down the street, and we're just going along in a little residential area in the middle of town, and I look up, and both Maud and I, we just froze in horror that there was a coyote just 4 feet away from us on the lawn looking at us. It was a statue.
It was a statue of a
lawn
coyote?
statue. It wasn't a real coyote. It was a lawn statue. And Maud and I, it was so hysterical. Like, we just both looked and we got afraid, and then we backed up. It was a lawn. But who has coyote lawn statues?
That's a really good
it
question.
Follows me.
Why don't we discuss
it's
that
like
for
my
20
animal
minutes?
Spirit
Coyote,
right here.
I think it's yes. Okay.
Sue O'Connell, we really did miss you. You did fabulous work on the trial. I'm really glad to see you.
I went to Camp Menorah for 2 years.
No, you did not.
I did Camp Menorah.
Were you most improved camper like I was?
No, I was the non-Jewish.
Oh, Camp Menorah.
Yes, Camp Menorah in Ipswich.
How come I didn't go to Camp
2 years.
Menorah?
I don't know. You didn't
That's
have
a very good
didn't have
question.
the strings my mother had.
Nice to see you. Let's hear it for
later.
Sue O'Connell.
Okay.
We've missed her.
Sue
She's
O'Connell.
finally back.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Sue.
And great job covering the
You did
trial
great
of the
job.
century
You
over
did.
there in Dedham. We've been speaking with local woman and coyote. What do we call you? A coyote whisperer? I guess something like that. Sue O'Connell, co-publisher of Bay Windows South End News, co-host of NBC 10 Boston's At Issue every Sunday at 11:30. Thank you very much, Sue O'Connell. We have missed you. Up next, from Meme Wars.
I'm Arun Roth. Coming up on GBH's All Things Considered, it's been a year of turmoil for Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission. Today, the state's Inspector General is telling Beacon Hill lawmakers how it might be fixed. This week's hot and humid weather is making life harder for people dealing with homelessness. Plus, we'll hear how artificial intelligence is being used in so-called war laboratories. Those stories and all today's news starting at 4 on GBH's All Things Considered.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the MBTA Commuter Rail, providing public transportation service to over 170 cities and towns in Massachusetts. Just take the train. You can plan your trip at mbta.com/massbytrain. And Eversource, committed to helping businesses reach sustainability goals and lower their energy use through energy assessments and custom recommendations. Learn more at eversource.com.
I'm Boston Public Radio producer Aidan Connolly, and you're listening to 89.7 WGBH, HD1 Boston, online at gbhnews.org. GBH News with NPR. What matters to you?
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. I'm Jim Browdy. She's Marjorie Egan. We're broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. We're back at the library tomorrow from 11 to 12. The Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, joins us in person to answer our questions and yours for that first hour. Journalist Elle Reeve has been covering the far right for years. When hundreds of white nationalists descended upon Charlottesville in 2017, Reeve and her production team for Vice captured white polo-clad men, faces lit by tiki torches, chanting, "Jews will not replace us," on camera. She was also at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th for CNN when the pro-Trump mob stormed the building. Both events, as you know, resulted in death. Reeve tracked how online communities brought their hatred out into the real world and the violence that comes with it. She joins us now on Zoom to discuss her book. It's just out today. It is spectacular. It's called Black Pill: How I Witnessed the Darkest Corners of the Internet Come to Life, Poison Society, and Capture American Politics. Elle, it's great to meet you, and congratulations on a terrific book.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We're thrilled.
Thank you for joining us. Great reporting on TV and great reporting in this book. So tell us, how'd you get interested in this?
Oh, well, I saw this weird political cartoon that portrayed Donald Trump as this super masculine, handsome prince. And it was just so overt in the idea that politics was about masculinity. I had to look this guy up. And it turned out that he had been tormented by neo-Nazis online who had damaged his reputation by making it look like he was a Nazi. He wasn't. And that got me into this website, and I 4chan. I started reading more and more and more of it, and I realized that there were thousands and thousands of young, smart, internet-savvy young people who were fascists, were neo-Nazis, and they had learned how to work together, even though they didn't know each other, even though they never met in person and never would. They learned how to work together to affect the real world.
You know, Elle Reeve, there are a bunch of people that you report on and have interviewed in your book that some of us, a lot of people listening to the show know. One person I'd never heard of, I was so consumed by your reporting on, I read it twice. Frederick Brennan, could you share with us the story of Fred Brennan?
Sure. Fred was a very, very smart boy when he was a teenager. He had a very difficult disability, brittle bone disease. It made it impossible for him to walk. Even, a firm grip on his shoulder could break a bone. And he ended up in foster care. So he had a very difficult childhood, and the internet was his window into the world. And for a while, this was a positive thing. And then he found this website for male virgins. The idea was that some men were so ugly that no women would ever be with them, and there was nothing they could do about it. And so he got sucked into this world and became a leader of it. He through a psychedelic mushroom trip, came up with the idea for making a website where anyone could make any board, you could post any message, there would be no rules. It would be total free speech, and the best ideas would rise to the top. And of course, we've all heard a version of that argument. It's not like this kid made it up. But what happened on this website was that the most hateful people, the misogynists, the angriest white nationalists, they scared everyone else off. So after a while, the only idea that rose to the top was fascism. So 8chan, the site he created, it became a place where people worked together and honed their white nationalism. They built this whole subculture that we've seen spread out into mainstream society. And eventually it became a place where mass shooters posted their manifestos, such as the Christchurch shooter. And after a few years, it became the place where QAnon posted, the guy who went by QAnon posted all of his messages, and it sucked in this mass audience. And from there, we saw what happened on January 6th.
But you skip one piece of the story that you just tell beautifully. Incel is the term that a lot of us learned, involuntarily celibate. You mentioned these virgin men who think they're too hungry, ugly, whatever. And all of a sudden, Anna appeared in his life. Who is Anna, and what was their relationship like?
I mean, it's another story made possible only by the internet. He's in charge of this site, Wizard Chan, wizard meaning a virgin who's reached the age of 30, although he wasn't there yet. She reaches out to him and says she has a fetish for virgins. Would he be interested in losing his virginity? He doesn't believe her at first, but eventually he buys her a plane ticket. She flies to Brooklyn to see him. And they have a very interesting setup. They're not monogamous. She helps cook and clean for him because he has so many difficulties with his disability. And this is like his sexual awakening. He posts to the incels that he and this woman have had sex. They view it as a massive betrayal. He's shunned from the community. While involved, they have a sexual encounter with another incel, a moderator on this website. And afterwards, you know, everyone had a good time who was involved. But afterwards, this other moderator who went by Bear, he comes to the realization that he's lost his community because he's no longer a virgin. And he has an absolute meltdown. He's saying he's ruined his life. He's ruined his life because he's not a normal person and he's not a wizard. He's just a loser.
We're talking to Elle Reeve. Her book is Black Pill, How I Witnessed the Darkest Corners of the Internet Come to Life, Poison Society, and Capture American Politics.
Elle, explain what the title of your book means. Where Black Pill come from?
Yeah, if you looked at politics on the internet these days, you're probably familiar with the red pill. It comes from the Matrix. The idea is the blue pill takes you back into a pleasant illusion. The red pill is the harsh, ugly truth of reality. So a lot of times red pill means believing in far-right extremism. But the black pill is more of an attitude and a vibe, which is that society is completely corrupt. Like, there is no redeeming of the current social structure. And so you are liberated to really take any action to bring about the end of that society. Because the rules, the norms, they've been created by morally bankrupt people. So you have no obligation to follow them. And this is how people justify to themselves. This attitude is what allows people to storm the Capitol, to do acts of violence in the street, to do things they wouldn't have normally done in their real life.
Jim mentioned when he introduced you that you were at the Capitol on January 6th. What did you think was happening there? How was that?
Oh, it was so crazy. The moment that it hit me really hard, I was standing on a stone wall right next to the Capitol, and all these people were going up the stairs trying to break in. It was like a massive traffic backlog. And I looked all around me and could see thousands and thousands of people all had their eyes on this staircase, all desperate to get in, and I could feel the crowd. Like, I never understood the term mob mentality until I was in this moment, and I could feel this electric feeling. Like, I could even feel its pull, this like rage mixed with thrill, even as I knew I was looking at this like humiliation of our democracy, an assault on our Capitol. And there's just regular looking people. I mean, we're sort of give like young people permission to act crazy at like a rock concert or something, but these were grown-ups. These were adults. These were people with jobs. They had on nice clothes, and they were just out of their minds.
You know, Marjorie and I have watched you a lot on CNN. We followed you when you were doing Vice. And having read this book, and people should read it, you're well known in this community. Lots of different feelings about you. Marjorie asked you how you got involved, but you've stayed in and probably done more in-depth reporting than virtually anybody I know. Do you experience fear in your reporting, or do you put that somewhere else? How do you deal with that?
Sure. The scariest moments are in a crowd. I've had a couple times, one at the Capitol where people circled up around me, and that can go very poorly. Someone was screaming, "We got CNN over here." I kind of was able to pick them off because one guy had a visible wet spot on his pants. So I asked him if he peed his pants, and he just kind of slunk away. One-on-one, it's a lot easier to control these situations, and it's more a battle of wits than of physical fear. It's only in that mob where people feel relieved of their moral obligations to not hurt other people.
Why do you think they talk to you, those who do? Why do you think they talk to you?
Well, within this movement, I'm almost a meme. I'm not really a person. I'm like a figure. So just one of them spots me in the wild and will try to trick me into taking a picture with them. Yeah, I mean, I've been stopped at the TSA line, at the airport. I've been stopped at the Guggenheim. You never know. And I have to listen very carefully for little tells that they're white nationalists. They usually give themselves away.
We're talking... I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You go ahead.
Well, I mean, at this point, it's just that I know so much about what has happened that they accept my presence. And it's almost like we can talk about, this battle. We are some of the only people who actually saw the same things in Charlottesville.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I assume was very scary as well, to actually be there and see that mob mentality in action in Charlottesville.
Yeah, absolutely. So it happened over a couple days. The first night was a Friday night. There was the torch march. I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew something was going to happen. So we show up at this field, and there's all these people milling about, and they light all their torches at once. And only then I can see that this is a massive line of hundreds of people snaking across a field. And that was a moment where that was where I felt fear. Are they going to win? This is a big movement with a lot of people. The torch march ended in a very scary melee. I wasn't the focus of it, though. I was able to stay on the outside of it. It's those moments when you realize the scale of what's going on that are the most scary to me.
Didn't you hear the moment when Heather Heyer was hit and killed by a car?
Yes, I happened to have been walking with my colleagues. We left an area where there were a lot of white nationalists thinking it'd be safer downtown. It was so hot that day. We stopped on a corner just inside a door to get a little shade. And we were only there a few minutes when we heard this horrible crashing sound. And in the moment, people were running, they were screaming. When it happened, I could hear that crash, the sound of it, the steel hitting steel and human bodies. It was replaying over and over and over in my head. But now, my brain has repressed it. I can't recall it anymore, even when I try.
Elle, the big question, we have a colleague of yours from CNN on the show every week, Juliette Kayyem, and I will try to speak for her in one regard. She believes that the aggressive prosecution and ruining the lives of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of would-be insurrectionists on January 6th is likely to deter other would-be insurrectionists or I'll do anything for Donald Trumpites. And obviously some of those convictions are going to be overturned because of one of the rogue decisions by the Supreme Court a couple of weeks ago. How do you see the future with the Trump as president or without Trump as president in this movement, if I can call it this, of lowercase Nazis, as you call them?
Right. Well, I think she's right. I think it has been a deterrent. A lot of these people were very angry at Trump for not preemptively pardoning them before he left office. There's a difference between the followers and the leaders. I don't know what the deterrent might be for the people who have actual political power. But you've seen groups like the Proud Boys. They've canceled their national events. There's a few local chapters, but these guys are afraid that they will get pulled up on RICO charges or something. As one has told me, they're afraid of being spied on because the Canadian government declared them a terrorist organization. So that is somewhat of a limiting factor. But if Trump were reelected, I do think there are a lot of people who think he would pardon them, who think they would have his back, or he would have their back. I guess it goes both ways.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking to CNN correspondent Elle Reeve. The book is Black Pill, How I Witnessed the Darkest Corners of the Internet Come to Life, Poison Society, and Capture American Politics. Jim mentioned you profiled different people, spent a lot of time interviewing different people, the so-called Nazi cult of people. One of those is Richard Spencer. We have a little sound of an interview between you and Spencer just a month after Trump's first term. This is from December, it was elected. This is from December 2016. Here it is.
We memed alt-right into existence, and it's now almost a household name.
But the people who created the texts of the alt-right are teenagers on 4chan who've trolled themselves into believing anti-Semitic stuff.
Do you know what's interesting is that I have actually met some kids from 4chan who started reading anything critical of race relations, immigration, Jewish influence, so on. And they actually read this stuff so that they could troll people.
Right.
But after reading it, they were actually convinced by it. But that demonstrates in a way that the truth quality to it.
Doesn't it just mean they're too committed to a joke?
It started out as a joke, and then it became real.
So what do you make of what he just said, and tell us a little bit about Spencer?
At the time, I didn't understand the significance of what he said, but since then I've heard that same sentiment. It started as a joke and then became real over and over and over, whether it's with white nationalists, gun rights activists, QAnon, people who've never met each other. It's this way that being exposed to an idea as just a joke over and over and over again lowers your defenses, and without even realizing it, suddenly you start believing it. Now, Spencer was kind of a bridge between the old white nationalist movement and this new internet movement called the alt-right that really got going in about 2014, 2015. He was one of the few who was willing to show his real face and his real name, so he became the face of the alt-right through the early Trump administration. Spencer wasn't really of those internet chat rooms that he was talking about there, and he didn't fully understand them. And only later, when he was sort of rejected by the movement, it washed out, did he tell me, well, they just wanted a dancing monkey. Like, he thought he could lead them, but he wasn't in control. Like, the way the alt-right worked was the cult controlled the leader. The leader did not control the cult.
Yeah. You mentioned at the beginning the young, was it Fred?
Fred Brennan.
Yeah, that had the disability, and it gave him, some comfort and a community to be online. Obviously, the internet's not going anywhere. We're not, I don't think, going to be regulating the internet anytime soon. What do you see as the future for people who are involved in places like 4chan, 8chan, this kind of incel movement? What do you think going down the road?
There's a couple of different paths. The incels that I've spoken to, a lot of them get trapped in these online communities where they're spending massive amounts of their day, every day, inside these chat rooms. And similar to the way people complain that Twitter is a hell site, like, this is a million times worse. They describe it as a horrible experience, but they're addicted to it and they can't leave. And I mean, I've met people who just don't go outside. Like, all they do is stay online and be mean to each other in these chat rooms. But as for the far right, what we're seeing is that people who grew up on 4chan, they are now old enough to get political jobs. And you see little symptoms of this here and there. So last year, the Ron DeSantis presidential campaign put out a video that included a neo-Nazi symbol, the sun in her head. And so the person who put out that video was fired, but what people missed, I think, is that entire video, everything about it, the vibe, the style, was of 4chan, was of these far-right groups. And elsewhere in conservatism, you see the trace elements of this subculture. Utah Senator Mike Lee calls himself Based Mike Lee on Twitter. And based is another piece of slang from this subculture. At the Turning Point conference last month, they handed out hats that said White Boy Summer. That's another slogan that was elevated in these chat rooms.
So it's not going anywhere, and it's probably going to get worse.
Well, there's also quite a big backlash to from regular people. Moms for Liberty, for example, I've interviewed Moms for Liberty members who told me some pretty extreme stuff, like that there was a concerted effort by the Biden administration and teachers unions, this is false obviously, to subvert the American family, but with transgender education. When I went and visited several school boards in Florida, school board meetings, there was a massive backlash to that. There was huge turnout by people of all stripes, all different backgrounds who are like, this is too far. Like, we don't want this in our schools. Like maybe I was uncomfortable with some of those books, but you guys have gone too far. And according to a tally by the Associated Press, Moms for Liberty candidates went on to lose the vast majority of their elections. So there really is a big backlash from regular people. Like, this is not a majority opinion. This is, so people can fight this if they're willing to take action.
Well, congratulations again for your reporting and for a great piece of journalism and great reporting in your book, Black Pill. Thank you so much for being with us,
It's good to meet you. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
We have been speaking with Elle Reeve. She's a CNN correspondent and author of the just-released Black Pill, How I Witnessed the Darkest Corners of the Internet Come to Life, Poison Society and Capture American Politics. It's a really important book. And thanks again to Elle for joining us. Up next, another CNN guy here and the pride of Dorchester, CNN's chief national correspondent, John King. We're going to talk to him about Joe Biden. Was he in or was he out? And whether he's a pickleball enthusiast. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
GBH thanks all of our members whose gifts help power this station. And there are so many different ways to make that gift. Whether it's recommending a grant from a donor-advised fund, giving a gift of appreciated stock, or even a charitable distribution from an IRA. That contribution will make a huge impact in supporting the news you trust here on GBH. Learn more about the ways you can give online at gbh.org/planning.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And ISS National. Researchers and developers can learn how to take their research to space at the International Space Station Research and Development Conference in Boston, July 29th to August 1st. Registration at issconference.org. And Furniture Consignment Gallery. Shoppers can view their pre-owned inventory in their showrooms in Burlington, Natick, Hanover, and Plymouth. Committed to the circular economy for over 30 years. More at furnitureconsignment.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming it online at youtube.com/GBH News. We're here again tomorrow. The Attorney General, Andrea Campbell, joins us from 11 to noon. We're joined now on Zoom by John King, CNN's chief national correspondent behind the reporting projects all over the map and the battleground. Hello, John King.
Happy Tuesday.
And to you.
John, great to talk to you, and great work on CNN on the panels and on your reporting out there in Wisconsin, which you're going to talk about in a second. But first, what is the latest on President Biden? In, out, what's happening?
He's still the presumptive Democratic nominee. The White House is making clear, and the president himself making clear, he has no intention to go anywhere. Democrats meeting today. The House Democrats have already met. Senate Democrats are meeting now. Some lawmakers coming out to give their support for the president. But look, he is dug in, and their doubts that he can win are still incredibly significant. So there's no change in the underlying dynamics. But right now, the president says he's not going anywhere. You're not going to. That's the only way. There are some people who have this scenario. Somebody at the convention steals it from Biden. Just set that aside. That's not going to happen. The president himself would have to be convinced or make the decision himself to step aside. And at the moment, there is zero indication he's prepared to do that. That does not mean that after these conversations in D.C. That there won't be another run at it. And some of the people want more data. There's a lot of distrust among Democrats at the president's team, who they think have masked this, hidden this from people for too long. But there's a big debate about what to do about it.
The sense I get, and this may be unfair, and you're there, so feel free to chastise me, is that when I listen to most of the Democratic leaders who are sticking by Joe Biden, mostly on your channel, they're not full-throated endorsements. They always begin with something that's hard to counter, nor should people, is he's done incredible things for 3.5 years, which to me is not that relevant to whether or not he can serve for 4.5 more. It seems to me, this is what I think maybe the unfair part, that they are waiting for another debate night. I don't mean literally a debate night. They're waiting for his NATO press conference later this week where he can't pull it together again, or some other irrefutable sign that this was not just a one and done, but it's more. Is that unfair to characterize that way, or is that what's real?
It's not at all unfair, especially when the White House answer is, he had a bad night. It's just a debate. And the White House, I agree with you completely, Jim, and we'll get to my travels in a minute, I think, but the voters are way ahead of Washington on this one. That there are a lot of people out there in this town, Democratic lawmakers, who say, wow, President Biden has, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, whether you agree with the proposals or not, we've talked about this before, he has been able to get through major significant legislation with the narrowest, tiniest of majorities in the House and the Senate, and that is a major accomplishment. Again, if you don't like the policy, you don't like the policy, but that he was able to get it done is a huge deal. But that's the rearview mirror. What he has stirred in that debate is a very legitimate conversation about, can this man be president? Does he have what it takes to be president? The toughest job in the world, many would say, for 4.5 more years. And so that's not taking away anything in the rearview mirror. The question is more forward-looking. Elections are about tomorrow. They're not about yesterday.
Well, we get tons of text messages from people who are Biden supporters whenever we talk about Biden's travails and his age, or saying you have to stop doing this, you're making it worse for him. But the sense I get from you and from your station and from everything I read in other news sources is that a lot of people just do not think, if Biden was behind before the debate, now he's getting more behind, that he can't win. That's basically it. And that his denial of the reality is very disturbing, because it makes you think, does he not know that the situation he's in? Does he not realize? So I think that's really unnerving, which is why I think people keep talking about it. So where does that leave us?
Well, it leaves us in this really strange, everyone's looking at each other waiting for somebody to make a decision. But you're absolutely right about, look, there's a feeling on behalf of a lot of Democrats, and again, voters out there, that the White House has clearly taken the people around Biden. Where are they? Where are the people who see Joe Biden every day? Why aren't they on television?
Yeah.
Why aren't they on television saying he's okay? Or can they not go on television because they can't answer those questions? There's a lot of distrust now among the Democrats who are in on this bet, if you will. And so they're looking for more polling data. The White House is saying, just trust us. And look, again, you can agree or disagree with his team, but he's been counted out so many times over his career. He has performed under adverse circumstances. He has amazing resilience. But what a lot of people are asking is, again, that's all in the rearview mirror. Does he have the tools? The data, it is interesting. The White House says they're all bedwetters, right? The White House says that the numbers haven't changed that much. But if you look at the 6 battleground states that we know will decide the presidency, then you can add 2 or 3 more states that we didn't think were battleground states. You see the polling in those states is not going the president's way right now. Now, in most of those states, it's only 2 or 3 points, or 3 or 4 points. But what Democrats are saying is that, he's going to lose. That's what they believe. That they don't believe he has the energy, the vigor, the time. 17 weeks from tonight, we count the votes to move 5 or 6 states, or maybe 7 or 8 states. And then they think the House and the Senate are going to go too. That the Democrats, they should be able to take the House back in a presidential year. Now they think that might not happen. A lot of them think it definitely won't happen. And in the Senate, which is the conversations that are happening right now, it was hard enough for the Democrats to keep their majority in the Senate. If every point the president goes down, makes it less and less likely the Democrats can hold the Senate. So again, their argument to him is, sir, you want your legacy to be you're the guy who kicked Donald Trump out of the White House, or do you want your legacy to be you're the guy who helped Donald Trump usher in an all-Trump Washington, House, Senate, White House?
John, when I hear elected officials half-heartedly defend, at least my interpretation of Trump, it doesn't mean that of Biden doesn't mean that much to me. What I know Marjorie's the same way. When you talk to real people, and I admit it's random and it's anecdotal, it really is. Well, you went to Cedarbrook, which, of course, Cedarbrook, is that what it's called?
Cedarburg.
Which
Wisconsin.
neither of us, of course, have ever heard of in Wisconsin. It's a place where Joe Biden won by a whopping 19 votes last time. Here are two of the people you spoke to. I think it's Lisa and Troy Reisman, I believe is their name, talking to John about their reaction to a week ago Thursday's debate.
Quite frankly, I didn't even finish watching. I was really having a hard time watching it.
And yeah, it was definitely scary. The first people that I called were my parents, who are really old, and I said, what did you guys think about that? Because obviously, I still know where I'm going to vote, where my vote's going to lie, but they don't, and they were equally as scared.
What'd you learn in Cedarburg there, John King?
So a few things there. And the White House would say, well, there are two Democrats right there, two Biden voters who said they wish the president would step aside. They really hope he would step aside. They think that would be best for the party and best for the country. And yet, if he does not, they say they plan to vote for Biden in November. Correct. So the White House says, aha, see, okay, there's a little bit of a controversy, but we'll be fine. We're not losing anything. But listen to what Troy said about his parents. They're still undecided, and they were scared by this. Right, so these are people in the hospitality industry, which is why I wanted to talk to them, because their suppliers are coming in every day, their employees are coming in every day, their customers are coming in every day. So it's not just what they think, it's what they hear. And everybody I talk to in Cedarburg, again, there's a debate there. Is it Biden voters who say, is it too late in the process, right? Would that just make it even worse and make it messy? Every Democrat I talked to there said if I was there a week before the debate, they would have told me they believe Biden could eke out Wisconsin, eke out Cedarburg again, win the state. And if you win Wisconsin, you're probably going to win the presidency because Michigan and Pennsylvania tend to go with Wisconsin and so on and so forth. Every one of them said since the debate, they either think Biden's going to lose or they're really worried he's going to lose. Now, again, there's 17 weeks. Maybe this can pass. But energy, enthusiasm matters in elections. And if Democrats are demoralized, do you get extra daycare help to go work the phone bank? Do you get, take a shift off, maybe use a PTO day to go knock on doors or deliver water to people who are standing in early voting lines? This can matter. Enthusiasm can matter in very close elections. Plus, Cedarburg is a place that actually has, true independents or Republicans who have a really hard time voting for Donald Trump. Maybe they voted for him in 2016, Biden in 2020. When you meet those Republicans, they watch the debate and they say, he can't do it for 4.5 more years. I can't vote for him and look myself in the mirror.
Well, what I wonder is when is the dithering got to stop here? Because we are running out of time, and if the Democrats do move away from Biden, then, as you say, that's a scary, unknown process too. So, when have we got to either, move away from Biden or say that's it, it's done, as Biden wants us to do, and say we're all in with him? How long can this go on for without really damaging his campaign or the Democrats' chances?
It is damaging his campaign, by the way. The Biden White House hopes the Republican convention is next week. People are seeing Trump, they're seeing the Republicans, and the people who don't like that will say, aha, we can't have that. No matter what I think of Joe Biden, I can't have that. That's what the White House is thinking. In the meantime, this is hurting the Biden campaign. There's no doubt about it. How long can it go on? So most Democrats say if he gets through the NATO summit, if the polling is not overwhelmingly bad, if it's just consistent with where we are now, which is not good for the president, you cannot make an argument on the data that the bottom has fallen out. You can make an argument based on the data that he was struggling before the debate and he's struggling even more now. And does he have the tools to change that many states in this short time we have left? So if we don't see anything by the middle as the Republican convention starts, I do think the Democratic volume will turn down. Here's one other thing, though, Democrats are whispering about. It's actually easier to replace Joe Biden after the convention than it is before the convention. If it's before the convention, then you have to he would have to free his delegates. You would have to have the delegates essentially vote before the convention. If it's after the convention, Democratic Party rules say the Democratic National Committee picks its candidate. So that's the old smoke-filled room scenario, but it's actually easier after the convention than it is before the convention. And what comes after the convention? The second debate.
If there is a second debate.
If there is a second debate.
We're talking to CNN's John King. John, one last thing before we move to Trump, who the self-restraint he's shown since his debate is something that I would never have thought, meaning don't put himself center stage. In fact, he's been quiet. Before we get to him, well, obviously, at least to me, I shouldn't say obviously, the most vociferous endorsers, supporters of Joe Biden are the people who are most likely to run for the Democratic nomination should he step out, from Whitmer to Newsom to whoever it is. I'm assuming, though, since the convention is so incredibly close, that while they're saying those things publicly, they have to be preparing under the radar for a possible campaign, even though it's an odd campaign. Are they, or is that too dangerous to be doing?
It's too dangerous to do anything public. There's nothing at all wrong with, and you might argue it's smart, rational, to say, get the campaign lawyers in here. What would the process look like?
Right.
Would I have to raise money? How would it be structured? Whitmer has said on the record she would not run if Biden stepped aside. Does that hold up? She didn't sign it in blood or anything. There would be a lot of pressure in the party if the president stepped aside. Number one, does he have a preference? And number two, it's a party whose foundation is African-American voters in urban areas in America, and the people already voted in the primaries. Do you somehow just make the vice president go away? That would cause a lot of friction. This is one of the arguments the White House is making, that you might want him to step aside, but if he does, it will be a mess, right? It will be a mess. There are also lawyers who tell you that there's some $90 million sitting in the bank, federal money, federal campaign money, not super PAC money, that was raised for Biden and Harris. And so if Marjorie is the Democratic nominee, she can't spend that money. And so that it would have to be, that's the argument for Harris, right? Because she could spend that money. So there's every layer of this you get into, which is why the White House is saying, be careful what you wish for. But other people are still saying, if we have to do it, let's get it done.
I'm sorry, Marjorie, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as long as you mentioned Harris, a lot of people, including myself, really weren't that keen on Harris as the VP choice. She ran kind of snarky in the presidential campaign, her own, which didn't last long. But she seems to have come into her own since the Dobbs decision. I've seen her on television. I've read her speeches, seen her giving her speeches. She seems to have, I don't know, if reinvented herself or gone back to her prosecutorial days or whatever. Is the thinking, I know her poll numbers aren't great, but she seems different now to me.
She is still an inconsistent performer, but she has star quality, Marjorie. You're absolutely right, and you see it sometimes. And again, from my travels, I can tell you from inner city Milwaukee, in the black community there, if Joe Biden were to step aside, the expectation in that community be with Kamala Harris at least get a fair shot at it, if not right there. So that's another open question, right? The Democrats are having this conversation. If you believe Joe Biden is definitely going to lose, and he's going to lose in a way that means you will not win the House and you will not win the Senate, right? So why not take the risk, right? You still might lose. And you still might lose the House and you lose the Senate, but you give yourself a fighting chance. Now, does the data support that sense of certainty some Democrats have about Biden? I would argue it does not. But you take that data and their mistrust of the White House political operation, their fear that Biden simply does not have the energy or the vigor to mount the campaign that would be necessary to reverse this. That's what they're basing that on. And again, you make an excellent point about the when part. This is either going to come to a head in the next 72 hours or so. If it doesn't, I assume there's a pause button, but that doesn't mean it goes away.
Hey, John, Marjorie and I both forgot to ask you the single most important question from Wisconsin. We were both watching your reporting, and we texted each other, and we said, was that John King playing pickleball with the pickleball woman that he interviewed? Yeah. It wasn't you?
It was me.
It was you.
Yes, first time.
So you any good?
Very impressive, John.
First time. I used to play racquetball, and I was okay. I don't claim to be very good at anything. But I used to play racquetball, and I loved it because it was just such a... Gina Salento, who's the instructor there.
Right.
Oh, man, is she competitive. Wow. She's a pro. She's a traveling pickleball pro. She used to be a tennis pro. Now she's a pickleball pro. And I keep joking with her that when I get fired here, I'm going to be her new doubles partner on the pickleball tour. So... hone my skills.
You look very fetching in those shorts.
Hey, John,
John
one
King.
last real quick one from me. Is there an odds-on favorite yet for Trump's vice president, or are we still a bunch of people in the running?
We still keep hearing Rubio, Vance, or Burgum.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this. None of them brings a state Trump isn't going to win, which is, again, could be a sign of his confidence, right? He's different. He thinks outside the box. They're all white men. Rubio's a Latino man. They're all men. when he has a problem with women. But Trump is different when it comes to this stuff. And as of now, he says he's going to do it in Milwaukee next week. We'll see if we get there.
Speaking of that, I didn't know there was a 12th Amendment provision that barred the president and vice presidential nominee from coming from the same state. So if he decides to pick Rubio, obviously Rubio's not going to change his residency because he wants to continue as senator if he loses, I assume. So does Trump reestablish residency in New York City, New York State for 4 months? Is that how they circumvent that?
The conversation has been that Rubio would indeed change his residency. Jim,
really?
That's one of those ones, I guess
Wow.
When we get to that fork in the, if we get to that fork in the road, that'd be an interesting one, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, a lot of knee bending around Donald Trump. Everyone seems
Notice
to
that?
bend to his will, so
They do
I guess
indeed.
I'm not that surprised.
Hey, John, the reporting is fabulous. We really learned a lot. And thanks for joining us as always.
I've
Really
always loved to
appreciate it.
see these regular people
Me
say
too.
things that seem so odd to me, but there you go.
Haven't had a chance to sneak this one in, so I'm going to do it real quick. How about them Red Sox?
We were praising them earlier today, by the way. Pretty
Things
great.
can turn around, John. That's right. The bleakest things can turn around. So,
Right, that's it.
yeah, we take some hope in that.
What John McCain used to say about Chairman, so he used to ruin this old Chairman Mao quote that it gets really dark right before it gets totally black.
Thank you.
John, be well. It's great to see you. See you
Okay.
next week. Take care of yourself. John
Thank
King.
you. We've been speaking with John King, CNN's chief national correspondent, behind this great reporting project all over the map and the battleground, where he goes out and talks to people all around the country about their thoughts on election 2024. Okay, coming up after a quick break, we're going to open the lines to talk to you about the beach body and you. How old is too old to wear a bikini? Why are the rules different for men in Speedos? Plus, how short is too short when we're talking about men in their summer shorts? You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7.
I'm Jared Bowen. Coming up on The Culture Show, in Massachusetts, physicians could soon be writing prescriptions for a dance class or a day at the museum to help with anxiety, isolation, or loneliness. The Atlanta-based operation called Art Pharmacy, which promotes social prescriptions, is partnering with the Mass Cultural Council to bring its program to the Bay State. That and more on The Culture Show today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Tanglewood, the summer home of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, bringing Beethoven, Broadway, and more to the Berkshires. You can plan your summer at tanglewood.org. And Boston Children's Museum, presenting the Summer of Curiosity, where you can play, create, and wonder about the world around you. From Winnie the Pooh to the Outdoor Curiosity Kitchen. Learn more at bostonchildrensmuseum.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Mark Regan and Jim Browdy. We're live at the library, streaming online at youtube.com/GBH News. Like it or not, we live in an incredibly vain society. The moment you step out of your door, someone's probably criticizing the way you look. And when it's hot, like this week, a heat wave with temperatures in the 90s, and you're headed to the beach, for example, that public observation can get in your head. So the lines are open at 877-301-8970. Whether you're 20 or well into your, let's call it, third act, or you're bearing it all in a bikini this summer. We're inspired by a piece in the New York Times. Do you have a self-imposed age cutoff for the two-piece swimsuit? And if you're a man, which I am, do you make the same considerations about your own body? Or are you letting your Speedo, well, they're called banana hammock flag, fly? Any sense of human decency be damned. And let's be honest here, this sort of similar to the Joe Biden question we've been asking. It's not really about age, but perception of performance or vitality, I would argue. 877-301-8970. The bikini, the Speedo, and you. Is there an age or size limit, I guess is another way to put it. Call or text at 877-301-8970. Is there?
Well, let's play a little clip of this 50-year-old actress, Gabrielle Union Wade.
Is she Dwayne Wade's wife?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. She is?
She is. Okay, there you go.
Okay.
Dwayne,
the great basketball player.
The great basketball player, that's right. She, on a podcast referenced in the New York Times, responding to criticisms about her Instagram post where she was wearing a bikini.
Like, somebody said, you're old enough to be somebody's grandma. Why are you still wearing bikinis? I'm like, first of all, they're not just bikinis. They are thongs. And Like, you're going to see these cheeks until my literally falls off. And I might just wear a bikini in the casket.
I love her. I hadn't heard
there
that.
you go.
I love that.
I mean, I gotta say, not everybody has a body like hers or a body like these actresses. You see, the Christy Brinkley's and all the great models and stuff like that. But I tremendously...
Martha Stewart.
That's right. Martha Stewart was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. She's in her 80s.
80s, yeah.
Looking absolutely fantastic. So, I admire people that, not just people that have great bodies like that, the people that just say, you know what, I'm wearing it, and that's it.
Because I like it. I'm
with you.
exactly
I'm
where you are.
But a lot of us are not like that. And, we didn't do these things when we were 14 years old, never mind when we're 30, 40, 50, or 80. But the most fascinating thing I thought when you talked about the Speedo bathing suits, in the story that talked about dad bodies, how men who have children, after the baby is born, their testosterone levels plummet because they are taking care of the baby. They become softer, and it's to help the new mother. And that has a physical reaction where their bodies become paunchier and less toned, and they wind up with a dad bod that they're not going to wear a Speedo in because they had been home taking care of the children.
Or they
I
may
never even knew that.
Or they may wear a Speedo in a dad
They
bod.
might.
I am a fairly judgmental person,
Yeah.
and you are, even though people think you're not.
I am.
What you said before, if you want to do it, totally do it. And if people criticize you, you probably couldn't deal with the criticism because you don't like to be criticized. But if you're happy, do it, right? By the way, one rule of thumb, I should say, despite having said that, my attitude is if you're a man wearing a Speedo and you look down and you can't see anything except your stomach, then you should probably reconsider. But beyond that, my attitude is if it makes you happy, do it.
This is more of a European thing. Very few men wear Speedos in the United States.
What are you
America. It's more of
talking
a
about?
European thing. We don't. Most men wear these long shorts that go down to their knees. As one of the texters says, when I go to the beach, I realize the human body, in most cases, is not beautiful. And that's true because most of us don't look like models, and we're not built like models, and we're not like 25 years old. So, but everybody's different, and if it makes you feel good, feel good.
Who's saying that? You or a texter? Who just said that?
No, I'm not saying that.
Oh, someone
apparently
said.
Bear Week in Provincetown is next week, and one of the texters
A lot of
says
Speedos
there's
there.
going to be a lot of Speedos at the Bear Week in Provincetown. Anyway,
You okay with that?
I'm okay with it. I admire people who are daring. Let's go to Doreen in the car. What do you think,
Hey,
Doreen?
Doreen.
Oh, fantastic. First-time caller, long-time listener.
Love that.
Love it too. Spent the last 2 summers in Europe. They don't care. There are women of all ages, if they're wearing a top at all.
Exactly.
Bikini. And they're just having fun with their family. You can just see it in everything they do. Completely not self-conscious one bit. Love it.
Why do you
But
think?
I won't do it because I'm from America.
Well, I was just going to say, when you're there, are you able to act European, or you're constrained by your American self?
So hard. Trying really hard. Maybe one day out of the whole summer, I might brave it. I'm trying.
So, but wait, stay for 1 second, Doreen. What do you think? If you've been there the last couple of summers, what do you think? What's the attitudinal differential that allows people, particularly in Southern Europe, well, not just Southern Europe, to feel much freer than we do in this country? What do you think that's about?
I think our egos are bigger. I think that there's our egos are it's all about us, very individual, looking at you, look at me, taking selfies. Like you don't see, you do see selfies in Europe, but I really think it's ego. They're just very busy living their lives and enjoying their kids at the beach and not paying attention to what other people are thinking about them.
I love that. It was a great first call. Call us again. Doreen, thanks. We appreciate it.
Okay, here's some text. If Donald Trump were to go out in public in a Speedo, it would cost him the election. That's David and Sharon.
Well, that may be true, but
that much of my body, so I'd never wear a Speedo. And one more, Dan and Randolph. As my family knows, my bathing suit has a name and a slogan. Big Blue, bigger than a flag, smaller than a sail.
It's pretty good. By the way, do you know what I mentioned banana hammock, which is the most common sort of slang for a Speedo. You know what they call them in the UK? And I hope this is something.
What?
Budgie smugglers. What does that mean?
Budgie
I shouldn't have said
smugglers.
that? Am I not supposed to have said that? What is a Whatever. Okay, well, let's move
we
on,
may have
Jim.
goofed up, Jim.
Thank you. 877-301-8970 is our number. We're talking about whether there should be an age limit. We're talking about age a lot these days in the presidential race. Should there be an age limit on the wearing of bikinis by women and Speedos by everybody else?
Okay, let us go to Ted in Attleboro. What do you think, Ted?
Hey, Ted.
Yeah, thanks. I'm offering my non-heteronormative perspective on
Please.
Okay,
coming
we're ready.
from Provincetown this past weekend. So, I mean, it's the norm up there. I mean, the younger guys are wearing them all the time. Older guys wear them, too, at the beach. Same thing for women if they're there. I think people should be free to wear the bathing suit and not look at it, really. I mean, it's great to look at, but, in a non-sexual way. And, Speedos or whatever, I think they're great, and my trainer convinced me last year after we worked. He's like, you should think about it. I went on Amazon, I got a couple, and I get compliments.
And how do you feel when you're wearing it? What's the deal? How's it feel, Ted?
How do I feel? Well, I'm around other guys also that are in Speedos in all different shapes and sizes, and I'm not a 10. But, it's, I don't know. I just don't feel anything bad. I probably wouldn't bring it to like a regular heteronormative beach or something like that. I'd bring my square trunks or something like that. But, I mean, in Provincetown, it's the norm.
It is the norm.
The thing on Borat that he was wearing, that's called a singlet. And they
Singlet.
That is right. Oh, pro wrestlers wear
Singlet.
those, right?
Wrestling singlet,
Ooh.
and there's theme parties for that in Provincetown.
There you go. Well, there it is. It's up on our little thing there. Thank you. Ted, that was a great call. By the way, the budgie, our colleagues say, I assume this is true, is a type of bird. Looks like a parakeet, notoriously small enough to smuggle in your pants. Is that where it comes from? The budgie smuggler is the thing there. Well, that's not anything horrible that I said. 877-301-8970 is the number.
Here's a couple more texts.
Please.
When you're 20, you worry about what everybody thinks. When you're 40, you don't care what anybody thinks. When you're 60, you realize that no one was thinking about you anyway.
Can I tell you something? One of the greatest columns you ever wrote, which I'm sure you took a lot of crap about. Tell the story about walking by construction workers when you were 20, 30, 40.
Yeah. Well,
the short version of it.
The short version is when you're like 18, you see a bunch of construction workers having lunch. You will completely avoid walking by them when you're 18.
If you're a woman.
If you're a woman. When you're 30, you might be daring enough to walk across the street. When you're over 45, you walk right by them and hope just one of them picks himself up from his lunch bucket and takes a look at you. That was kind of a sexist column to write.
You're
but
an
I think
honest
it's
woman there,
I think it's
Marjorie.
sort of
It was
true.
a fabulous column.
Yes. Paul from Worcester says Project 2025 probably wants to make bikinis illegal as well as anything that shows a woman's navel, and he's talking about the Project 2025 that Donald Trump wants to
I
put
would say
together.
Project 2025 would probably say women should be naked 24/7. I mean, really?
Are you kidding?
Donald Trump?
That's all the conservative eventical types that
I know.
want to
Who's in
put all these
charge of that,
restrictions.
even though he says he doesn't know anything about it?
Well, Donald Trump is in charge of
Yeah.
it, and he's softened some of the what they're going to talk about, the
Abortion,
convention.
same-sex marriage,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay. And here's one from Karina in Natick. With all this body dysmorphia out there, I think that whatever makes you feel good.
Exactly right.
I'm from a tropical country, and we show everything that we would like to show, and she loves it.
That's a beautiful spirit. I am totally with that. So here's an anonymous texter. All the Canadians come down to Old Orchard Beach, and when my son was little, we were walking the beach. My son said, "Dad, that man has no pants on." The man's stomach was so big, you couldn't see the front. This is what I was talking about. Front of his Speedo as he was walking towards us. I mean, that is the threshold from my perspective about when you maybe want to rethink the whole situation. Paul in Fort Lauderdale, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hey guys, how we doing?
I think we're good. Thank you for asking. What's up?
So I belong to a paddleboard group, and I happen to be a gay male, but these guys, a lot of them are straight and wear thongs, by the way.
Really?
I was wearing something, a Speedo, but conservative, square cut. And this 25-year-old is in front of me, and all these ladies on the beach are, "Woo-hoo-hoo." And then I come around the corner, and they said, "Well, at least you're getting sun."
Oh,
the looks
Paul.
on their faces.
That's pretty
Honey, I had lost
self-aware.
50 pounds. I was feeling good about myself,
Well, you should continue feeling good about yourself. Paul, that was a good one. Thanks for sharing it with us. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Have you heard of red green? I don't know who Red Green is.
I always worry. Is that a person?
I don't know, but this is from Bob in Oklahoma. He says, this Red Green person, if that is a person, said it best about men over 40 not wearing shirts in public. They are scaring children and confusing babies.
Okay. By the way, Art from West Bridgewater texted, and could be huge. He suggests a Smug Mug, the swimsuit edition. Well,
I think that
let's put
would
it
be a
this
great
way.
idea.
Half of that would sell, if you know what I mean.
Okay.
Okay, yourself.
Let's go to Christina in the car.
Christina, what's up?
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm in my 60s and
Yeah.
I wear bikinis.
Excellent.
Whenever I want to, and the brighter the better. The hot pink with rhinestones on them.
Oh.
And I happen to have a good shape because I work out and I eat well. But I'm not ashamed to show my body. It's not as sleek as it used to be when I was younger. There's a couple of little layers of fat, but otherwise, I get everybody looking at me.
Well, good for you. So you have
I
a
love that.
confidence about it, Christina, even though you're not a young woman.
Oh, absolutely. And I also agree that anybody should wear whatever they want and strut it.
I love that. That's a great expression,
Well-
too. Strut it. Christina, thanks for the call.
You know, I was mentioning to our staff before we were talking about doing this morning, and Nora Ephron, one of my favorite writers, she was very funny.
great.
She wrote When Harry Met Sally, and she wrote You've Got Mail, and all these great movies, wrote a lot of great books. Talked about it. She died in her 70s. She was talking about the things she would miss in her life, and she said, looking back, she said, you know, she was very self-conscious about her figure when she was young, but she said, looking back from the age of 60 or 70, she says she should have spent her entire 20s wearing a bikini. And I thought that was a great sentiment. They were also self-critical, particularly women, that she was saying a lot of it is about youth.
You know, every time I'm watching CNN and Carl Bernstein is on, and obviously of Woodward and Bernstein
Yeah.
fame, and he still does some great reporting. I think he's in his early 80s or maybe 80. What's the first thing I think of when I see him?
That they were married.
Nora Ephron.
And she wrote a hysterically funny book, which was made into a movie,
I know
actually,
that.
with Jack Nicholson and Meryl Streep. It's called Heartburn.
It's great.
You want to have a good summer read. This is Nora Ephron writing the book about her husband going off and having an affair with the ambassador of England's wife when she was like 7 months pregnant with their second kid. And you know, they say revenge is best served cold, Jim.
Yeah.
She took care of him, I would say.
She did.
In that
By the way,
book.
I interviewed her. Do you remember on
Yes, I was
when I was
with
on
you.
NBC? You weren't.
No, we had her on the radio.
Oh, we had her on the radio
right after
too?
she did There's Something Wrong with My Neck.
Oh,
or
right.
something about
We
my
were
neck.
talking about right,
Yeah, or
exactly.
something,
By the way,
whatever it was.
Patrick and
I don't
Quincy,
like my neck. I forget the exact title of it.
Patrick and Quincy has a great idea. How about Mug Smuggler? We can call the next. What do you think, Ted? That's pretty clever, by the way.
Lisa
Maybe we
from
should hire that guy.
Yeah, Lisa from Cambridge. Thank you for
Hello,
calling.
Lisa from Cambridge.
Well, good afternoon. How
Good
are you?
afternoon.
Great topic.
Thank you.
So I am the soup lady and the mattress warmer lady.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. I've called before and spoken to you on other occasions about things. But anyway, getting back to the point, I wear a two-piece. I feel I look better in a two-piece. However, I will not wear something that goes up the crack of my butt that I'm constantly wanting to feel like I need to pick it out of my butt.
That's an excellent criterion. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
But there is a gentleman, and you know, I think that men should get to wear what they want, with
Exactly.
exception. There's a gentleman that tends to walk Nahant Beach every time I'm there.
What's his
no
problem?
matter how long I'm there for.
Yeah.
He wears grape smugglers, which I don't know that it's really that appealing.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Body that
I get it. Yeah.
but, you know, to each his own, I guess.
No, don't go away because I want to write down. What did you say the criterion is for you again, Lisa? Can you share that? What's the criteria, please?
I would feel that if you feel that you're in decent shape and you want to wear something, wear it.
But there was an exception to that. What was the exception again?
The exception.
You said it, not me. You remember that?
I would not wear something up the crack.
Yeah, she
Up
would
the
wear,
crack.
They
That's
call
what
it a
it was.
thong. Don't they call it a
Up
thong?
the crack.
I think that's a thong.
No, I think I'm writing that down. Up the
Okay.
crack is a no.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that incredible wisdom
Let's
with
end
us.
this
We
on a
thank you.
high note.
That was beautiful, actually.
This is a texter. There's such a freedom bathing naked in Europe. Everyone should try it before they die. I did it in St. Martin at age 70. I do not look like a model, but I felt free.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's a
isn't that
beautiful
kind of-
sentiment.
I thought that would become an
Really is
upbeat way to
beautiful.
end this
We're
thing. I
done.
don't think we decided it, Jim, except that we're going to get the Beach Edition Smug Mug. I'm all for that. That
That
would
could be
really,
a huge.
yeah,
What
a
did that
huge
guy call
success.
it again? The something smuggler?
I don't know.
The mug smuggler.
It was a great idea, Art. Thank you for that. You can keep up with us 24/7 by
Please
way of
do.
our podcast or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. Jim's in his shorts a couple of times on the TikTok page, I think. Aren't
I
you,
am.
Jim?
I'm in my shorts today.
Tune in tomorrow. We'll be back here at the Boston Public
It's hot.
Library.
I don't know if
Ask
you
the
know that.
Attorney General with Andrea Campbell. She'll take our questions and yours from 11 to 12. GBH Executive Arts Editor Jared Bowen, Carol Rose from the ACLU of Massachusetts, the Pine Street Inns, Lindia Downey, and naturalist and author Cy Montgomery, who's so uplifting to talk to. Our crew, Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss, who helped us out a lot
She was
today with her
hugely helpful
corrections. Additional support from Ariana.
I would not call them corrections. I would call them additions.
Additions, okay.
Thank you.
Supplements.
Yeah.
Ariana Gonzalez, our engineer is John LaClaw Parker. Our executive producer is Jamie Bologna. We want to thank our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Juan Jose Cadena, Sandra Lopez Burke, and Amanda Francis, as well as our hosts here at the Newsfeed Cafe and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show with Jared Bowen starts right after the 2 o'clock news here on GBH 89.7.
Oh, we should say, by the way, Jared will be doing the show for the first time in a Grape Smuggler. The first time he's ever done it. Culture Show. You should check it out, 2 o'clock live.
Yep. Thanks for the folks that came down to the
Thank
library.
you all. Yes, indeed.
I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Thank you for tuning in today. Hope you can tune in tomorrow. And meanwhile, have a wonderful afternoon and stay out of the hot sun.